watching closely.
What's the secret, Max?
You just gotta find something you love to do and then do it for the rest of your life.
I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me.
Hello, and welcome to The Establishing Shots, a podcast where we do deep dives into directors and their filmographies. We are on episode 7 of the podcast. Episode 7, yeah. And on the 6th movie in Wes Anderson's filmography. So, yeah, over halfway there. Hit the halfway point, I think, last week, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, we're over the Wes Anderson hill, if you will. So yeah, I've got back with me for his second guest appearance on the show, Haydn Fabre.
Glad to be back. Ready to talk some foxes and some adult middle-age crises and some childhood acceptance problems. And let's dive into this little stop-motion wonderful masterpiece that he's given us.
Absolutely. Yes, we will do that. I don't have to make Haydn give his life story to you guys, since hopefully you've heard it before back on the Rushmore episode. But yeah, it's exciting. I'm ready. I'm ready for some Fox talk. Haydn. Haydn, we were just talking before the show. Haydn feels like he has the Kylie eyes because he's been flying all over the place, Europe and.
Yes, I went to Chicago for a conference, and then Atlanta for a conference, and then Europe for a week on vacation, and then Atlanta again to speak at a conference. So I'm on a lot of sleep, which is what's weird about it. Is like last night I got 10 hours of sleep, but I still am just Kylie-eyed out. I've got the swirls, and if you catch me staring in silence, just throw me a blueberry.
Yeah, hopefully not a laced blueberry though.
Yes, no laced blueberry.
You don't need that. Maybe a blueberry laced with like melatonin to go to sleep later. But I
feel like a glass of that, apple cider, the liquid gold, as the rap will just hit the spot, wake me up. There's got to be some caffeine in that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you might end up with some of the mud that they gave him to make him think he was drinking it, and you would just think you're so tired, you would just think it was the real stuff.
That was so sad.
It was sad.
We can talk about this later, but I wonder if he ever even tasted it. Truly, did he? Or was he drinking it?
Yeah, he was literally drinking it when they ran into him. That's what's funny about it is like he's like, I just wanted a taste of that cider, and I'm like, come on, Willem Rat, like you were drinking it.
Route 44, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he was just so addicted, like he just needed another.
That's what happens when you're a psychotic rat. You just use the liquid gold.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
But so we're like I said, we're on the 6th film in Wes Anderson's filmography, Fantastic Mr. Fox. And I guess we'll jump right in. Burrow down into what's going on in this movie. The little one of my favorite things in like the extra features on the Criterion disc is like it shows you like the 6-armed Mr. Fox. They made like a little 6-armed Mr. Fox that his arms like rotated to get that like digging effect. Oh yeah, it's great. But yeah, let's talk about it. Have you ever read any Roald Dahl books?
I have not actually.
Okay.
I'm very unfamiliar with Roald Dahl.
Yeah. So to be honest, I've only read one. And I've read Fantastic Mr. Fox. So Yeah, I
Did you?
love the movie, and my wife bought me the book when I don't remember what it was for, Father's Day, Christmas, something like that, you know. So yeah, I read it. It's actually like, even if you're like a slow reader, I'm not that fast of a reader. I'm pretty slow, admittedly, but yeah, I read it in like probably just like an hour or two. It's
I should
pretty
really
short.
do it. I read
Yeah,
rather quickly, so I should just give it like a couple of hours and just
yeah,
dive straight through it.
yeah. Just like swing by Barnes and Noble or the library or whatever, pick it up, read it, go home. You know.
Because it's like it's truly a kid's book, right? Like it's
Oh yeah, for
yeah,
sure. It's a chapter book, but a really low level chapter book.
yeah. Like Zeke,
Um,
no, but in 2 years, yes.
yeah. Like my son is 4, and like I mean, we're working on like reading some, but yeah, he can't read yet. But yeah, I mean, it's a book we could read to him now. Like
Yeah,
he'll sit down and listen, or play while he listens to you read a book.
yeah. You really need to get on him.
But
I plan to have my son reading by 6 months.
yeah, yeah. So well, good luck with that. But yeah, but about like 6 years old, yeah, 6, 7,
Okay.
probably, yeah, yeah. Like he could probably watch this movie like soon. It's not.
Mhm.
There's not anything. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about like the kid movie nature of it and stuff, but yeah, I was just wondering if you had read anything. I actually like didn't think the book was like that fantastic, if you will. I didn't grow up like reading Roald Dahl, and it's a bit different. Like as an adult, I guess trying to go back, some like children's books, like I can go back and read, and they're like really good. But yeah, that not that one for me. I'm not really sure why, because I absolutely love this movie, but also like I guess the medium of movies, like kids movies, speak to me more than kids books do.
Yeah.
As an adult, and so it might just be the medium.
Yeah, I think that's
Um,
what it is. You have to write things in a certain way for their brains to comprehend it, but when you put it on a screen and speak it to them, they're able to
yeah,
catch things bigger. So I'm sure
yeah,
there's
maybe
just
so.
creativity that can be
Yeah,
expressed in a film.
yeah, but also you can. I feel like it's easier to like layer a film with and I really like him jumping way ahead of my notes, but yeah, I do feel like this is like a pretty layered film, like which a decent amount. Like Pixar's always been really good about that, is like making kids movies that like are layered with adult problems too, that kids won't really understand and they can enjoy on a kid level, but adults can enjoy it on an adult level.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, so I'm not like super familiar with Dahl, but yeah, Wes Anderson was and is, I guess, a big Roald Dahl fan. He talked about how it was his favorite author. Him and his brothers like loved Roald Dahl books, and they would, borrow them from each other and like steal them from each other, uh, and yeah, so he obviously Mr. Fox was one of his. He named 2 favorites that I read in an interview.
Yeah.
And Mr. Fox was one of them. I don't remember
The Wonderful Life of Henry Sugar.
No, it wasn't actually, unless
Reportedly in the film.
it might have been, because I think that book is like an anthology, if I'm not mistaken, and
That's what.
so
Yeah.
it might be one of the stories in there. It was like Danny, Champion of the World, or something like that, which I don't know if it's standalone or part of that
Yeah.
Henry Sugar book or whatever, but
Cool.
yeah, those were his favorites, and so Mr. Fox, I guess when he was thinking about what kind of animated kids movie he might make, Mr. Fox was like top of the list for him. I guess it wasn't like he happened upon it. It was like something that had been in the back of his mind. He said in an interview he had been thinking about doing something with it for like 10 years, which is kind of a trend. I feel like every week I'm talking about how he had been thinking about this movie like while he was still making the past movie or the one before. Like he has all these ideas kind of rolling around in the back of his head, which is probably pretty normal for a filmmaker, I would guess.
Yeah, I feel like they have a different mind space where they're constantly
Yeah.
thinking of stories and how they can portray them.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I do think like Wes thinks that Dahl has like a unique and pretty, like, he has a knack for the child's perspective, like what makes a child scared, what makes a child fascinated, what makes a child laugh, what sorts of things are children interested in hearing about, you know, all that sorts of stuff. Like, you get the feeling that like Dahl just like had that in his mind, like it's the way he thought. Because I mean, you think about stories like Matilda, you know, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like which are some of his like bigger books. Like those are just like, hey, like obviously what a child would think about, you know, what would interest a child.
Yeah, and the ability to write stories without feeling a need for a larger scale of consequence. To just write a fun story about a fox stealing chickens, or wonderful chocolate factory where crazy things happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Fantastic Mr. Fox book is literally like the bare bones of, if you've seen the movie but haven't read the book is like the bare bones of the middle section of the movie.
Yeah, the book is mainly just the robbing of Bargus Bunsen Bean, right?
Yeah, sort of like the fox, Mr. Fox like wants to do that, and he starts doing it, and then they start digging him out, but they don't ever get to him. It's basically like the story. And like
House, Ash and Christopherson don't even like have names, I don't think, in the book.
Yeah, well, Christopherson, there's not any kid characters, and there's actually like a litter of foxes in the book. So yeah, the mother's more like kind of like traditional house mother kind of figure in the book. She doesn't have like a whole lot of agency, which there's not like, but like I said, it's pretty bare bones. Like there's not really much opportunity to give her any. Like, but yeah, the I will say this: Bogus Bunsen Bean are like way grosser in the book. Like they're like they're like pretty, especially Bean. Now I'm mixing them up. Bean is the cider guy, right? Bogus Bunsen.
Yes.
Bean.
That's the one.
Yes. So yeah, you know, he is kind of the mastermind in the movie, and the other guys are kind of like bumbling minions almost. In the book, they're all just kind of like gross and greedy and disgusting. They're like not super like Bean in the movie is pretty menacing, but in the book, they're all just kind of like, you don't like any of them, but there's not like, and they're like threatening, but not, I don't think they're threatening to the level that Bean is in the movie. Like he definitely like amplified Bean for sure.
Wes, in the commentary, he talks a lot about how he formed Bean's character, and he almost formed it as the way he says it is he took the image of Roald Dahl himself and tried to put him in an antagonistic role as Mr. Bean himself. The way he dresses, the way he speaks, the cigarette smoking, those were all apparently staples of Roald Dahl.
Interesting. Yeah. And that's interesting too, because you also hear like the opposite of that from Mr. Fox. Like he kind of tried to think of Mr. Fox as Dahl also. So it's interesting because I didn't listen to the commentary on the Criterion disc. I know you did. So yeah, I didn't know that. He kind of did it's kind of like he did the I don't know, the
He took
good side, the good and the dark side of Dahl in
Yeah.
those two characters.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the other, I think one of the main differences in the book too is just, he, well, at one point, they're talking about like the tail getting shot off. Like that's in the book. His tail gets shot off.
Yeah.
But in the movie, it becomes a necktie, which doesn't happen in the book. It's like this like symbol of like I'm after you, like I'm going to dominate you. I'm wearing your tail as a necktie,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
That's-
It's like this
that's the
added
hardest
thing.
That's one of the hardest things that you can do, man. Take a
Yeah.
man's tail and then wear it as a necktie. Like,
Yeah,
that's
it's a bold move.
that's some war words right there.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Wes even said in that interview, he said, well, like the interviewer said, or Wes said, one of them said, Dahl shot his tail off and we made it into a necktie. And Wes said that, he said that's basically like a good summary of how we adapted the book. Yeah.
That's nice.
So I thought that was funny. Like, yeah. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Wes just kind of says as to like why he chose this. It's kind of like a typical Wes answer. It's like, well, I liked it. I liked the animals. I liked the book. I've always loved the book. The animals are awesome. And the best part is like, he just loves the digging.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the main reasons he made the movie, is because he liked the digging and he wanted to make the digging happen on screen. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, what a way to pursue a film being made. I like it, and I thought digging is cool.
Yeah, digging is cool. Let's put it on in a movie.
That's all you need.
Yeah,
And he
and
was
that's like
I can't get, Adrian Brody in real life to dig a hole, so we're just going to use
Right.
puppets and have
Right.
a puppet dig in a perfectly straight line that doesn't make any sense.
yeah, and we'll get George Clooney to voice the main digger.
Yeah. Just
Because why not?
since 14.
Yeah, maybe he wanted George Clooney to be like a live action Mr. Fox and dig, but Clooney was like, "I'll do it if it's animated because I'm not going to dig."
Yeah.
So he was like,
I'm not getting on my hands and knees.
not really, but he liked the digging, and so he made the movie. Yeah, and it's animated, stop motion animation, his first endeavor into that world. Which, when this was coming out, there was kind of like a this kind of like self-assured thing that was going on in the critics world of like, of course Wes is doing an animation. Like we all knew he eventually would do animation. And I guess like there's a degree to where Wes sort of owns it. Like that gets brought up in an interview and Wes sort of owns it. And he's kind of like, well, I was hearing that too. And basically he kind of says, yeah, it's because, I have this reputation for being very controlling. And, and he also kind of was saying it's sort of probably because my characters are very much caricatured.
Yeah.
Like they have exaggerated qualities, kind of like cartoons do, kind of like animated movies do. And so he was like, yeah, it's a valid thing. He kind of like owns it and says, yeah, that's valid that people would say that, which I appreciated. He wasn't like, they didn't know.
Yeah, his films are most often compared to dollhouses,
Right, yeah.
He's got a dollhouse effect in how he builds his sets and how he writes his dialogue even and places his characters in a frame. So why not take your dollhouse style of cinematography and do it with dolls?
Yeah,
that's
do
what
it
he
with
does.
dolls and tunnels.
Yep, dolls and tunnels. What else does a man need in the 21st century?
Not much. But yeah, he he got to make this movie. So it's interesting. He's coming off of Darjeeling, which really wasn't that big of a movie. You know, after Royal Tenenbaums, he made Zissou, which kind of bombed, especially based on its budget. And then he made Darjeeling, which wasn't terribly well received. It's when you look at it today, it doesn't look like it has like terrible ratings or whatever, but it wasn't well received really at the time, from what I could tell. And then he gets, Mr. Fox, I think, was kind of like got him back on the uptick as far as like his reception goes. It was actually his second largest budget behind Zissou.
Really?
Yeah, he I think it was like 40 million that he spent. That was his budget for this movie, which you never. It's kind of unclear what all that entails. Like, does that include the marketing or no? Or it's hard to put a finger on exactly what that is. But yeah, so yeah, and it didn't make a whole lot. It made 46.5, I think, on the box office worldwide.
Yeah, that's a flop in today's world.
Yeah, but it's better than Zissou, which had like a $50 million budget and only made like 20 something or 30 something. So
crazy.
At least he made money on this one.
It's so crazy how they do this. He says in his commentary, he proposes the idea of making a sequel that would show their lives in the sewers at the end of the film.
Yeah.
But he says, I don't think there's any studio on the earth that would want to go for a sequel to a film that barely made profit.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And, if he did release a sequel today, I don't know. I think it would do okay, because this seems like a movie that got more like better reception, I guess, later on. Like, it didn't necessarily make a lot box office wise, but I think it's really caught on in just the general public as far as how well it's received. A lot of people have seen it now, I think, now that it's maybe not, they didn't see it in theaters, but they've watched it since. And especially with, after this movie, he started getting an uptick in his reception in general with the public, and with Moonrise Kingdom, and especially with Grand Budapest, which was his huge movie that got a lot of attention. I think people started going back to stuff like Mr. Fox, and I think it is more well received now than maybe it was then. So it might get a good sequel reception. I don't know. Yeah. But I was wondering about that earlier, just thinking, like, would Wes ever make a sequel to one of his movies? And it's interesting to hear that he said that he had like ideas for one.
I don't think he ever should, personally.
I don't either.
They just need to stay the way they are.
Yeah,
I like to snip it into the world, and then I like pulling out of it and jumping into another world with another one of his films.
Right. I feel the same way. I wouldn't want him to make a Mr. Fox sequel, but if one was coming out, I would be excited about it because it's Wes,
It could be like casting Mr. Fox and then like mediocre Mr. Fox.
Yeah, maybe Fantastic Mr. Ash. Maybe Ash is grown up now.
Ooh, there we go.
Yeah.
About it. Ash and Christopherson.
Yeah.
In 20 years, 25
years. They're like it could be like, I don't know, maybe like Ocean's 11. They could kind of maybe like Ash is like the Clooney now.
Yeah.
And Ocean's 11, and so now like he is kind of, it kind of be meta in that way. Ash would be the Clooney now, grown up. Clooney was his dad before.
Yeah.
And now they're getting together a band of stop motion animals to, do the biggest job of their lives.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Recruiting. He recruits the, he finally goes back and makes amends with the beaver that bullied him, put mud on his face.
Yeah. Yeah. He has to recruit him into the
Seven Samurai style recruit
into the gang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would watch it.
Yeah. I mean, if this gets around to US somehow, passes around, and bring us on, bring me and Hayden on. We'll talk through the script with you. We'd be happy to.
Give you this 30-second clip. I just want you to know that Fantastic Mr. Fox is my favorite movie, and I want to work on Fantastic Mr. Ash. So give me a call. My number's listed in the
Ash is 11. That's what it would be, I think.
Yeah, I'd love it. Let's do it.
It's like your "Hey Mom" moment.
Yes. Hey, yeah. Wes.
Hey. Yeah. So, man, it's super interesting. Wes really like dove into this as far as adapting it. He went to the dollhouse in English. It's the doll, like Roald Dahl house, not the dollhouse.
Not the dollhouse.
DOLLDAHL house.
Yes. The Gypsy House, right?
The Gypsy House. Yep. That's what it's called. I don't know why, but that's what it's called.
And it's somewhere in England, right?
Yeah.
Western England.
Yeah, Roald Dahl is English, and so
whenever I was in Europe, his books were absolutely everywhere. So
yeah. I mean, people love him, and it was really sweet. His wife, I don't know how to say her name actually, Lissy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Liccy. I assume it's like Lissy.
Yeah.
But Lissy, I don't know. Litchi. They're not Italian, so
yeah.
I don't think it's the two C's make a CH. But anyways, it was really sweet. She was saying, like, she actually invited Wes reached out to the Doll Foundation or whatever and talked to her and was talking about wanting to adapt the movie and wanted to see their, property and where Doll worked. And she invited him and he came to England, went to the Gypsy House. She gave him a tour. She took him to the little hut where Doll worked. Doll had this little hut kind of in their field, in their property. And it was this tiny little cozy place. He had a desk with a special chair and a little tray that sat in a special chair. And he had a special mug. It was very Wes.
Yeah.
Kind of. You could see why Wes is drawn to this guy because he's got his precise setup. And he would just sit out there and write and work in that little hut. And so Wes she let him in the hut. They had this what do you call the people that preserve stuff? I don't know. But basically people that preserve documents, special historical documents. So they made him wash his hands twice or whatever before he handled the stuff.
Wow.
And yeah, he stayed overnight at the Gypsy House. They basically said hey, lock the door when you leave the Doll's little hut.
Well, that's so
and
nice.
He just stayed in there for hours and hours and pored over his manuscripts.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Didn't he take the grocery store ending? Isn't that taken from the manuscripts? Roald Dahl had an alternative ending for it, and
that rings true.
Yeah.
It seems like I might have heard that, but I'm not sure, so I'm not going to say yes for sure.
Okay.
But that sounds right. Yeah. My memory is not working right now completely.
I understand mine either. Should have wrote it down.
Should have.
Yeah,
he poured over the manuscripts and he stayed overnight. He walked around. She gave him a tour of the house. When he was there, he actually took him or somebody that was with him. I'm not sure who exactly took the pictures, if it was him or someone in his crew, but they took pictures of every single object in the Gypsy House. Chairs, teapots, mugs.
There are a number of sets, right? Set pieces from the film that are directly taken from it.
Yeah, I mean, a huge number of the little set pieces, like the little set pieces, are basically models of objects from the Gypsy House.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
He mentioned in the commentary that whenever August Bunce and Bean have the conversation on the porch before going in to like rally together to take down Mr. Fox, he said that was directly modeled after the Gypsy House porch. So I'm sure him and Noah Baumbach had a lot of great conversations where they would later build a miniature set of.
Yeah. Well, so the little street, like the English street where they come out of the manhole.
Yeah.
Towards the end, the pub that's like at the end of that street, it looks exactly like the Gypsy House.
Yeah. What was it? The Fad's Head or something?
Yeah.
Like that?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that.
This pub name.
Yeah. That little pub is modeled after looking like exactly like the Gypsy House.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I know whenever I watched it for this pod, in the background, I don't know if you noticed, there's some graffiti.
Yeah.
It
says cuss.
It says cuss. That's so awesome. It's like a graffiti cuss behind the old English pub in the middle of Foxytown.
Yep. There's if you go in the special features for on the Criterion Collection disc, there's one of the special features is like stills, basically like someone there taking photos. Yeah. So a lot of the photos are like of the cast and crew and the sets and the little puppets and stuff. But one of the photos is a clearer like shot of that wall that says cuss. Oh. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's so cool.
Yeah. So, so when he decided to adapt it, basically he co-wrote this with Noah Baumbach, which, Noah Baumbach wrote. What did he write with him? It wasn't Darjeeling. It was Zissou.
Yeah.
Yeah. He co-wrote Zissou with him already. So he's always already familiar with working with Baumbach. So
and they were very good friends, I believe, at the time. While they were working on Fantastic Mr. Fox, they were also working on The Squid and the Whale. Baumbach's film. So they're kind of bouncing all kinds of ideas around at this time.
Yeah, I watched that not too long ago for the first time. It's the only thing other than his own movies that Wes has produced. So he produced that movie. So I was like, I'll watch this since Wes was involved with it. Yeah. I can't remember if he has writing credit. I don't think he has writing credit on that.
Yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't show up as that in Letterboxd anyway. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so he wrote this with Baumbach, and he kind of talks about. I didn't really see much from Baumbach for this one. He wasn't in any interviews or any of the special features. So, but he seems like that kind of guy. He doesn't not really interested in that, as far as I can tell.
A true true.
Say that again.
True and true writer. In the back,
yeah.
Just writing all the beautiful dialogue that we.
Yeah. All the dry, witty dialogue. So they wrote this together. Wes kind of talks about how they would basically, like, they had the bare bones of the story, like I said before, from the book. And so this is Wes's first adaptation work. Everything else he's done before and since really has been original screenplays, and so this is the first adapted work he's done. Looks like he's gonna do another Roald Dahl adaptation, hopefully coming up soon. So far this is his only adapted work in Mr. Fox, and he basically talks about that the story from Dahl kind of begs for more.
Yeah.
They kind of taught. It kind of seems like the way they added this stuff was just kind of they let it organically build, and so they kind of started with thinking about what might have been happening before, Mr. Fox goes into this, stealing spree. on the Bogus Bunsen bean farms, and they ended up with the story they got. Oh, he has this, wife, and they're stealing together. She gets pregnant. He has to be domesticated in a way. And so they were just kind of like, well, what would happen then? Oh, maybe, they have a preteen son. Oh, maybe and so it kind of built, and then eventually they got to where, okay, now it's the book. And so, there's obviously like added stuff here and there.
Yeah, well, you need something to spur on events like this.
Yeah.
The benefit that you get in children's books is that the children will just join whatever story is being told. Whenever you're telling a children's story to adults, you need a bit more of a buy-in. And I think that conflict of, well, I'm a family man, I'm getting old, but my roots are in these thieving trips, these heists that I run.
Yeah.
And then how do you teleport someone from where they were to where they are into the old bad habits? Move them just like he does in the film. You move Mr. Fox from a safe place where none of this temptation is even there to another spot where he is trying to find a better place to support and grow his family. But it just so happens to be right across the street from the biggest temptation, which is these three farmers. I think it's amazing how he is able to set up that story with actual stakes, with actual background that we can actually relate to as an audience, rather than, not many people have the desire to go steal things.
Yeah.
But planting the seeds like this really does a number.
Yeah, he kind of treats that a little differently than Dahl does. Dahl kind of treats it as, well, this is just what comes natural to Mr. Fox. And Wes takes that. He's like, yeah, it does. It does come natural. But Wes's Mr. Fox wishes that there was a different way. There's kind of like this inner conflict. We'll talk about that more.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought it was interesting the way they were just like, that's the way they thought about adapting it. Okay, we have the meat of the story, the bare bones of it, and we need to add, some organs to it. We need to add a kind of how we got here, and then they kind of add on at the end too. So really, like, they didn't change really much of Dahl's story. They just added to it. Is basically how they went about adapting it.
Just gave it context for why they would be in this situation.
Yeah. But then, so Wes storyboarded the whole movie, and they took the storyboard and made an animatic of it, which I wasn't super familiar with what that was, but basically it's taking a storyboard and animating it in drawings. Very, 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 very simple, like drawn animation. And so they actually took the storyboards and actually made the whole movie with the voices and like an animatic of what it would look like. Wow. And so you can actually watch the whole movie in that animatic form on the Criterion disc.
I'll check that out. Just like on storyboards bouncing through the.
Yeah, it's not super interesting because it's just like pencil sketches, and it's not like, it's not animated like a actual hand drawn movie.
Yeah,
it's kind of like very jumpy, like
scene
motions. Because it's just to show them what the shots will look like, what that sort of thing. And so they took that and then obviously started working on the stop motion work from the animatic, which makes sense. It seems like a natural flow, moving from storyboard to animatic to now we know what it's going to look like scene to scene, the sorts of camera movements we need to make, that sort of thing. But and then there's so much that goes into making a stop motion movie once you get to that point. Like the puppets are just incredible. They use like real fur. There's like real like sewn together clothes. And it's really interesting too. You can go in the special features, or maybe you can find it on YouTube too. There's like, look up Mr. Fox behind the scenes and you can watch them. They start with like, they make these little like kind of wire figures that have all the little joints. Like they literally like have all the specific joints that you would need it to have to make all the like fine movements it needs to make. Mouth, like little things for the eyebrows. And then they like make a mold and they like put that inside of the mold. And then they like stick the fur into it and pop in the eyeballs. It's like, it's super incredible.
It sounds
like the eyeballs have these little tiny holes in the middle so that they can stick a little thing in there and move it for the eye movements.
Wow.
I mean, it's just incredible.
And it's like
just
12 photos a second, right? Is that the...
Yeah, so it's 12 photos a second and sometimes 24. So some
like slow motion shots or something.
Yeah, if there's like more movement action going on, then I think they do like 24. I don't know if it's like doubled up photos or what, but that's what one of the animators was saying in one of the behind the scenes. Was that sometimes they have to do 24 instead of 12 per second, which is crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
And like that same lady was saying that she was working on the post flood little scene in the sewer after they've been washed into the sewer, and she was saying that scene she was working on is an 18-second shot, and you're taking like 12 to 24 photos for each of those 18 seconds. And it took her like over 8 days to finish animating that shot, that 18-second shot. It's really crazy. And I wrote down a few of the little stats like that, like the Flint mine dolly shot, which is where they're in the Flint mine. They're starting to like, it kind of goes across. It starts with like the little animal playing the piano. You see the kitchen stuff, and it's like Fox and Badger kind of talking through what they're going to do. And it's that dolly shot where it's kind of following them as they're walking that Wes is famous for. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that shot took 5 weeks to animate.
Oh my goodness.
5 whole weeks. Even the last shot. So what we can talk about in a second, the different scales of the puppets, but that last shot is using the miniature puppets. And it took the shot in the grocery store where it's zooming out. That took 6 days, I think. That's what I wrote down. 6 days to animate that shot.
6 days of positioning tiny puppets into dance moves.
Yeah, and it's not a long shot. It's not like a few minutes or anything. I mean, it's probably less than a minute, that shot of them dancing. Yeah.
Especially the miniature section, because I know they kind of scale the puppets down as they get further out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, yeah, they're far away.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's the other like really cool thing that I think. So like with this movie, you kind of lose some of the Wes, like typical Wes style filmmaking things. Like there's not a lot of pans in this movie. Like Wes loves pans. But I think at one point in the interview, he said he had to like just forget about 75% of the pans he wanted to do. Just because of the dynamics of like the sets. Like you make a set and each little set is kind of standalone. So you can't like pan from this background to this background really, because they're two separate little animated sets.
Yeah. And even the very few times where there are pans, you can see it move almost from one set to another set. So you imagine how that builds.
Yeah.
Like I think of the dinner scene when Christopherson and Ash are, having another argument or something at the dinner scene, and it does one of those hard pans over, and you can, for a moment, it almost takes you out of it because you realize that the camera's in the center of the table, and as it turns, you see that Mr. and Mrs. Fox are sitting at a completely separate table because it's so difficult to get that panning effect in something like a stop motion table set.
Yeah. Yeah, but he does pull it off in those few times he uses it. So you lose some of the West style, but then you get to add on. Well, I mean, so there is still a lot of typical West stuff. Like there's the dialogue is very much West. You have like the annotations, like the chapter annotations is, even though this is his first time adapting a book, he's made like, I think of the Royal Tenenbaums, you get the little chapter annotations to start each like new kind of chapter of the movie sort of thing. So that's still very Wes. But then like you get to add on new thing. So like if you think about what would Wes want to do if he was making a stop motion animated movie, and you get some of that stuff, like stuff he can't do in live action, but probably would if he could. And one of those is the scales. So you have the 3 different like scales of puppets, which is normal for like a stop motion animation. You need different scaled puppets for different like sets. But what Wes does with it is like, so the best example, there's 3 main scales. So there's the large scale, the what do they call them? They have like names for them even. There's like large, small, and mini. And there's actually a 4th scale, which is the micro mini, which isn't used that often. Like I think the tree scene with the fox way in the distance is a micro mini, and it's just like very bare bones. Like it doesn't even have a ton of detail to it.
Yeah, they don't even have fur once they get down to those small levels.
Yeah, and so but the 3 main ones they use are the large, the small, and the micro. And so in that first scene where you have Mr. and Mrs. Fox stealing the chickens, and they're kind of doing the kind of like parkour across the farm, you see all scene? The what?
The Super Mario scene. That's what I see it as.
Yes.
The platforming like in a Mario game.
Yep. I've never thought about it like that, but that's very much so. That kind of 2D one directional video game. But so that scene uses all 3 scales. So when they're kind of like real close up to the camera, you're in the full scale, the large scale, and then they're a little farther away and they're in the small scale. And then there's a couple of times where you see the micro ones where they're like way off kind of in the set, and that set is the same. So you're painting across the same set, but Wes will have them like enter and exit into the just bump my mic. Wes will have them enter and exit into the camera and the different scales, and that feels like a very Wes thing to do. He even talks about that in an interview where he's like, it's not supposed to be unnoticeable that all of a sudden they're re-entering after they go behind this thing in a different scale. He said you're supposed to notice it, and it's supposed to be fun. Which is just like a very Wes thing. Like, absolutely. Of course he would want you to notice that, I'm changing the scale of after they come out from behind this hay bale, they're in a different scale, like to give a different like distance perspective. But you're supposed to notice it, and it's supposed to be a fun little gag,
One thing I noticed it most in was right before when Ash and Christopherson are having their bonding heist moment, and they're going to step back his tail. When they see the apple fritters, the apple snaps or whatever on the table, they like run into the room at the small scale. And they disappear behind the plate itself. And they climb up on the table next to it, and then they're in the large scale.
Right.
Clear that they went out of frame intentionally to be able to switch to a different scale to get more detail.
Right. And Wes is like, you're supposed to notice that. Like, I guess not supposed to, but he's like, if you notice that, great, because it's fun. It's a fun thing to notice. And he's like, I'm not trying to be like subtle. He's not. So I really love that. But it's just, man, you could really go on and on about just those puppets. It's just really like, if I were to watch a movie and it was just like an absolute trash movie, but it was stop motion, I would still have great respect for the movie, even if it was trash.
It's just so immense.
Yeah. I mean, it really is incredible. But I think one of the last things as far as like making of I wanted to touch on was the voice acting. It was super interesting watching. So Wes took George Clooney and some of the other actors out to this farmland, and they recorded live on the farm a lot of the like the voices recording. So they did some studio stuff after that, but a lot of the conversations are like recorded on that farm out. And it's funny, he had them like doing some of the things that they were doing in the movie, and then like if they're walking, he would like crouch down and like pat the grass to get like real walking grass sounds. They actually like recorded that and used it in the movie.
Wow.
Yeah, just a ton of like cool details like that. But yeah, Wes talked about it, and he talked about how it was, when he got Clooney to come on, Clooney was like happy to go and do that with him, which was really cool to hear, because you think of Clooney as this like big movie star. Like, he's not going to go, he just wants to go in the studio and record and be done. But no, he was like happy to.
Yeah.
Like, and you can tell he's having fun too. Like, there's a one point where it's Clooney, the guy that plays Kylie, what is Kylie, a possum or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's somebody else on the little cart with them. So he has this like little motorcycle with the sidecar. It's not Ash, but it's somebody else.
Was it
No, maybe it is. It is Ash. It's whoever voices Ash.
At the end, Ash snuck in while they're like rolling out.
Yeah, so it's that scene, but they're all like literally sitting together they're like piled on top of each other on a ATV. They're not like driving the ATV, but they're pretending they're driving it. So they're all sitting on that, and like Clooney is bouncing up and down, like making the ATV shake, and they're like recording. You see the boom mic. They're recording that audio for that that voiceover. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah. Such an interesting way to do it, and
yeah,
it so clearly shows like the buy-in that everyone in this film had. Everybody about the silliness and the fun of it.
And it too, like you kind of, I think Wes, sometimes people have the wrong impression of him as a filmmaker because of the like incredible detail and control he has over a lot of stuff. But he really is, like, when you watch behind the scenes stuff, he's really having fun, and you can tell that none of the actors feel like it's a slog. Like, they are all like really excited to be there.
Yeah.
They're happy to work with him. So you get the feeling that he does create this atmosphere on set that's kind of brings a lot of camaraderie and just like, yeah, let's get after it. But yeah, just to have Clooney. Oh, there's Clooney. You see Clooney in the extra features, like eating some toast. Where in the movie he's eating like the pancakes, like that.
Oh
yeah. Yeah, that great. Like, just this movie is hilarious.
Yeah. Well, that was the first scene that they shot, isn't it?
Yeah, but he's literally sitting at a table eating toast. Like, Clooney is actually like eating toast like that.
That's
you awesome. You need to go back on the Criterion disc and find it.
I haven't seen that clip, but I've seen the ATV one. The ATV one is lovely, but I haven't seen that.
Yeah, you need to find the toast one.
I'll look it up.
I think in the movie he's eating pancakes, Mr. Fox, but I'm pretty sure it looks like toast.
French toast or something of the sort.
Yeah. It's so fun. I mean, watching George Clooney like eat toast like Mr. Fox to record the audio. It's great. But yeah, it was interesting. Wes talked about he didn't do that for the quality of the sound. Like, he didn't do that because like, oh, we're outside, so we need to record outside. It wasn't that. It was like there was two things he wanted. He wanted to not just record voices for the characters, but he wanted to record performances. And so he was like, let's go actually do the things we're recording so we get performances, not just voices. So that was part of it, which is really like, I think, thoughtful, and it shows like that he's really thinking through literally every aspect. Like, how can I get the most out of this? And then two, he wanted the spontaneity of it, which is, again, like something he gets a bad rap for, or not a bad rap, but just like he has a reputation, I think, among some people that assume, oh, he's so very controlling, but he actually really embraces kind of spontaneity and unpredictability.
Yeah.
So there's a scene that they're recording. I can't remember which one it is, but they're recording it like at a lake or something like that. And there was a boat that passed by, like a, and you can hear it in the audio recording, but that was the take that they liked. And so they're like, well, we're going to animate an airplane flying by. So there's a scene in the movie where there's just this random airplane that flies by. It has nothing to do with anything, but they had that boat drive by in the background that had that motor sound. And so they animated an airplane flying by.
I wonder if that's the Whack Bet scene, because there is a plane that flies in the background of the Whack Bet scene.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be. I can't remember which one it was, but I just thought that was so cool. Like, and that's part of why he did it. He wanted that kind of unpredictability in the sound recordings for it. Yeah, I love that. And he talks about, you kind of made a collage. You're kind of taking pieces of this recording and this take and kind of making a sound collage to put it all together to get the best, which is really cool.
That is.
But yeah, there were just a couple more like making of stats before we really move into talking about, man, we're just like, me and you are going to end up talking about this for forever.
Yeah. An hour in. All right, let's finish up the opening remarks.
But yeah, there were 120 unique sets, which is just crazy to think that they're building this many sets. And one of the guys that's like one of the, I guess, production design guys talks about how Wes was like, he was there with them, like making sure all the props were placed just how he wanted them. And he said like it could take up to 24 hours to like get all the props placed exactly where they wanted them on set. So they're sitting there like they're using a whole day, like just placing the props exactly right in the little sets, which is just cool. And the other really cool thing was the cider cellar. So in the, Bean's cellar full of his cider, all of those glasses of cider are illuminating the scene. And so they had to place each of those just right so the light would come through them just right. And if one was like misplaced a little bit, they would have to go in and adjust it because it would affect the lighting of that set and that scene for the shooting. And so like they literally had each of those those were all like actual tiny little cider jugs.
Wow.
And they all had to be placed exactly just right.
That's such an interestingly lit scene, like too. It's so cool.
Yeah, and it comes from just like the preciseness of that that illumination from the cider jars or jugs. Yeah. Really cool. But yeah, I mean, we could talk all day about that. But yeah, I know. So we touched on it back in the Rushmore episode, but we haven't really talked about it since we started recording. But this is just one of your favorite all-time movies, right?
Yes, I'm. The question, of what is your favorite movie is asked extremely often in circles circles that we're involved in.
Sure.
And for years, I didn't have an answer to it. I would take, the greatest movies of all time, and there's a list of 50 movies that I enjoyed the most. That they'd be impossible to rank. But being in ministry and also just being someone it's very difficult to make a definitive, yes, this is my favorite movie of all time. I eventually landed on Fantastic Mr. Fox because, as much as I love Goodfellas, when a 7th grader comes to me and says, Pastor Haydn, what's your favorite movie? I can't really say Goodfellas. They're going to go home and then they're going to come back the next week and they're going to be like, ever since I was a child, I always wanted to be a gangster. But Fantastic Mr. Fox is one that I can recommend to anyone. Anyone will enjoy it, whether they're 5 years old or 500 years old.
Yeah.
It's a movie that's full of joy, but also it's a movie that challenges the way that we like look at dreams and look at what it means to really be alive and look at what it means to love those around you. So yeah, Fantastic Mr. Fox is my favorite movie of all time,
Definitively.
Maybe Asteroid City will come out and knock it out the park, and I'll be like, well, I was wrong. We can re-edit this podcast, but
Yeah.
Fantastic Mr. Fox has got my number one slot.
Yeah. It's funny, everyone that really loves movies and that talks about movies a lot, you'll meet someone and they'll find out you love movies, and that is the question, like, what's your favorite movie? And it's just like such a terrible question, to be honest.
So hard to answer.
I don't have a favorite movie. I have a lot of movies that I love,
Yeah.
But you kind of have to say something. And so I think, Mr. Fox is a good one to.
It's a nice, safe one. No one's ever been like, did you hear Fantastic Mr. Fox is his favorite movie? No, because it's just a fun movie. Like I have a friend that I work camp with, Logan. He may be listening to this. I met him through Jacob. And he says all the time that his favorite movie is Scooby-Doo, the live-action Scooby-Doo movie. This is a guy
that's interesting.
4,000 movies logged on Letterboxd and watches every movie that's ever existed and that ever comes out. But he says that Scooby-Doo is his favorite because it's fun to have that quirky number one that isn't ever what anybody expects. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, and I don't know. You almost like wonder if that's like ironic. Yeah, it's probably not. Maybe he really does love it, and if so, great. But yeah, Mr. Fox doesn't sound like ironic. Yeah. But what I guess what is a quality of this movie? Like, I have some points that I want to hit on for just like the themes, but what are some of the, I don't know, what's something about this movie that gives it a quality that you just like, this is my movie. Like, I love this movie.
Yeah. That's a great question, Eli. I think in different seasons of my life, I've related to different characters of this film.
Okay.
I think that's what really does it for me. So when I was young, it took me years to find that thing I was good at. Like, I had a lot of friends who immediately they found out that they were super athletic, or immediately found out they were super smart. And I was always like a bit of a jack of all trades, but also a master of none,
Sure.
And the first time I watched this, just seeing Ash's frustration in, no, I am athletic, and no, I am smart, and especially in the face of Christopherson, who is just perfect, I was like, that's me, and then getting older and dealing with my insecurities and seeing the same issues in my life constantly resurface and never truly being able to put my thorns away. I was able to relate to Mr. Fox, who's constantly apologizing for the same sins against his wife and against his family.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the film, you're almost questioning the sincerity of his apologies because you keep messing up with the same things and apologizing in the same way. But that's what we do throughout our lives. Really. We apologize for the same things over and over and over again.
Right.
I think that the honesty and the layer of, this is a children's movie, and it really is not. It's not a children's movie. It's if anything, it's a movie for, those going through a season of life crisis. So specifically when I went through like my quarter life crisis when I was 23 and 22, and I was like, who even am I? What am I even doing here? That waterfall scene where Mr. Fox is like, sometimes I'm just afraid that if I'm not just the most fantastic person to ever exist and just knock people out by how amazing I am, I feel like I'm failing. Right. And I realized that was my headspace, that I just felt like I was failing all the time. It's just so honest. It's so real. It's so honest. It's just layered in this quirky and fun thing that you can show anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would argue it is a kid's movie, but it's it's a layered kids movie, it's layered. It's not, maybe the best way to put it is it's not just a kids movie.
Yes, that's a better way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not simply a kids movie. There's some movies that you watch and you're like, yeah, this is for kids.
It's not like a movie that is a kids movie, but it's like a kids movie asterisk with a couple of adult themes.
Right. Or with like jokes that only adults will get. It's not that sort of movie for sure. It's the layered aspect is probably the best way that I could put it. It has layer, like, so, you know, I really thought it was really cool what you were saying about you relate to it in different ways in different parts of your life. So, you know, you relate to Ash when you're kind of in your preteen, and that transition, not really knowing who you are, not really knowing how you fit in, not really knowing, you know, what makes me me, what am I good at? And then, you know, when you start moving into adulthood, you know, you kind of can relate to Mr. Fox more and the things he's dealing with. And then, you know, for me as a father of two young children, you know, you even add on another layer of like, who am I as a father? How do I relate to my wife and my children? And what does that look like for me now? What road does that take me down? You know, you kind of do, you know, you have the pregnancy announcement in the trap, and he kind of gives that fake smile.
The big teeth.
That's great, you know, hey. And, you know, you kind of, you know, you feel all the things when you find out you're going to have a child, you kind of feel all the things. You feel excitement, you feel nervous, you feel, you know, am I doing this? Is this going to I'm just realizing this as I'm talking. You do feel like, is this going to trap me? Yeah. Am I trapped by this new situation that I'm in? Like, is having a kid and a domestic, you know, family life going to trap me? Am I ever going to be able to be who I'm supposed to be? And so, yeah, it's those layers. You add on the layers and layers, and every time you watch it, you can see more of those layers. And it's so incredible that a guy like Wes and Noah Baumbach were able to write such a layered movie. I mean, it makes sense, but at the same time, you're like, man, how could they have written this? You know, on the Criterion disc, one of my favorite things on the disc is they have these two kids review the movie. And have you watched that?
I have not, no.
Oh, it's hilarious. I can't remember what it's called on in the little special features thing, but yeah, there's these two, they look like they're probably like maybe 11, give or take, maybe a little younger. I'm not sure, but it's hilarious. They talk about some of the things that they think are interesting and that they like were moved by, you know, in a kind of kid way, or that they, you know, they were interested in the stealing. Like, why is he stealing? That's something that they were interested in. What's making him steal? They were wrestling with the question of, well, if he's stealing to provide for his family, maybe that's okay. It was just like, it's funny, like,
that's funny.
But they're digging into this movie as kids, but in a very like kid way. It's not like they're watching it and they're like, oh, this is just fun and there's nothing more to it. Like, they actually are thinking about, like, what does it mean? What can I learn from this? But then, like you said, like, as you move into different phases of your life, I think there's something for you there, which is really incredible. It's a very nuanced movie, as far as like speaking to life and what life is, while at the same time being this like chaotic, comedic ride of a movie. Like, you literally never know what's around the corner in this movie.
Balanced.
Yeah.
It's one scene he's in a attorney's office buying a tree house, and
having a cuss fight.
having a cuss fight at each other. And then the next scene, you're watching him interact with his kid, and your heart just is kind of breaking because Ash feels so unseen by his dad.
Yeah.
And your heart is like, man, whenever, like, as you who have two kids, and as I who will have a kid, in the coming years, it's just like, I hope my son never thinks that.
Right.
I hope my son is never feeling like he needs to beg for my attention because I want to give him my attention so freely.
Right.
I hope he feels enough, I hope he feels loved the way he is. And Felicity Fox does a great job at speaking to him in a way. I'm like, I know what it feels like to not be able to say what you feel like.
Right.
It's convicting, Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I think what he does really, like, at the end of the day here is he takes a children's story, this Roald Dahl book that really is just kind of like an adventure. There's like, I guess there's themes to it, like don't be greedy.
Yeah.
Is kind of what it can boil down to from the book. But really, like, it's pretty bare bones as far as like what themes is exploring. It's just like a cool, fun, adventurous story. And it's a kid's story. It's a kid's movie. It's going to have a happy ending. You just kind of know that. Kids' stories have happy endings, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great thing that kids' stories have happy endings.
Love a good happy.
And so, since there's not that like conflict of how is this going to end, Wes moves the conflict to an inner conflict. And so that's where like the conflict and the wondering how it's going to end comes, is like, what is going to happen with Mr. Fox? Like, is he going to change? Is he going to like do the right thing? Like, is he going to figure out who he is?
And he asks the question of where the greed comes from. Whereas the book just gives us, greedy fox because he's greedy, and then Wes creates.
Well, the farmers are like more the figures of greed, I think, in the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the Mr. Fox is just like stealing from the rich kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it's like, in a sense, but in the book, he's a fox, so that's what he does. There's not really much more to it.
I got you. And then Wes is like, the point still stands that Wes is able to take that. Well, he's just a fox. It's just what foxes do.
We're wild animals.
Yeah. And tries to put him into this box of society, of human society, where they're, doing taxes and reading the news. Like, he's a newspaper columnist. That's Mr. Fox's job. He writes a column in the newspaper. How far away from a fox's nature can you get than to write a column in the newspaper and be concerned on whether people read it? But he's able to give that contrast in, removing the fox from its natural habitat from so far, where the fox is coming to terms with their nature, and we're coming to terms with our dreams in a parallel. Watch this movie. Yeah,
it's cool. I think of something else that really stands out. It's something that Wes is really good at, and I think in his next movie, which we'll talk about next week, I think is his best movie as far as this goes. But just having a bunch of characters, like an ensemble of characters that are all feel fully formed. Yeah. Like you feel like what Badger's all about, even though you don't see a whole lot of them. Yeah. And you feel like you just feel like these characters. And I think part of that is just, I think from the very beginning, like from Bottle Rocket on, something that has made Wes movies unique is maybe even more, not more so, but just as much so as like his style and like design is just his care for people, for like individuals. Like he has a deep care and empathy, I think, for just people. I don't know if there's a better way to put that. Like, I see you and I see who you are.
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So, you have the Mr. Fox scene where he says, I see all of you and you're all fantastic in your own ways, and I think that's a message that speaks to kids, but there's that other layer of it for adults too. And it's funny. Jason Schwartzman in one of the interviews in a special feature was just saying, like, to him, the movie, a big thing that the movie about is just showing you that there's something fantastic about everyone. Which is like a very like kid theme, but just like the layers we've been talking about make it very like prescient and I guess like applicable to us as adults too. You might not feel like it in whatever like weird transition or weird place in life you are, but there is still like something fantastic about you. And maybe it's that you're a demolition expert and no one knew it. Yeah, which is just another, like, it's just, that joke is another example of like, you just never know what's going to happen. You never know what the next person is going to say or what turn it's going to take. Like, I think that Mr. Fox, the way he eats the pancakes is another example of that. Just like the comedy of like, they're having this very domestic conversation and the way they're like respectfully talking to each other. She like brings him his plate of pancakes and then it's just like wild animal eating time. And like, you would never see that coming. Like the first time you watch that, like you're going to laugh out loud because it's hilarious and you never see it coming. And the movie is packed with stuff like that.
Yeah. And breaking up the, you don't need to buy this land. It's in a poor area of town. It's in bad real estate. And having this conversation in the lawyer's office. And
he has a real estate agent. It's Wes. Wes voices the real estate agent.
Oh yeah, with the pink sweater on. He's like, house. Yeah.
When he started talking when I watched it this time, I was like, that's Wes. Because I've been taking in so much Wes content doing this podcast. Like the minute he started speaking, I was like, that's Wes. He voiced that character.
There's a lot of really cool cameos that he mentioned.
His brother does Christopherson.
Yeah, he said that. That's awesome.
Yeah, which he's done some little side roles here and there, but Christopherson's the first time he's like been a kind of major supporting role.
Well, like they do the pan shot that you mentioned earlier, whenever they're like, getting ready for like the Thanksgiving dinner, if you will.
Yeah.
The bunny rabbit that's cutting the carrots, or whatever. That's like preparing the chef. It's like a 5-star chef. I don't know his name or anything. But
okay.
The voice that's provided, the 2 or 3 lines, whatever that are there, is from an actual 5-star chef that Wes knew personally. That in the commentary he says was one of the most famous people on the cast.
That's hilarious.
For different reasons than obviously being an actor.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. There's so much stuff like that just makes this a joy to watch. But then that's just Wes movies. Like, man, I'm having so much fun watching this, but man, does it get emotional. Like there's 3 like especially touching scenes for me. Like we've talked about at least one of them already. The first one is when Mrs. Fox, they're in the mineral deposit, like she takes him aside and she like smacks him.
Yeah.
And she's like, why are you doing this to us? And man, it's just like, I don't know why that scene gets to me, but it does, because I guess it's just like the kind of guilt and shame you kind of carry when you have a family of like, am I like, is just the way I am like harmful to my family? Like, do the choices I make and the mistakes I, like you said, like kind of fall back into, am I like destroying my family? And, it's something when you do have someone that's that close to you, like a wife, like your wife, your spouse, that can say something like that to you. That's a special thing. It can be harmful if you take it the wrong way, but it is a special thing to have someone that can say that to you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That scene's really touching to me. It's super like the waterfall scene is just so good. Like,
yeah, that's probably the reason that I love this movie.
And it's beautiful.
Did you see in the commentary or anything that you watched on how they made the waterfall look the way it did
Yeah, go into that.
with the saran wrap?
Uh-huh.
Dude, that's so cool. Like all of the water effects were saran wrap. Like that's complete note from the touch.
Different sorts of plastic,
But,
and they just shift them around. And the smoke is all cotton.
Yeah,
they just kind of shift the cotton around to make the smoke. And the fire is actually like pieces of soap.
Yeah, pieces
like
of
a translucent waxy soap that they've made, and to make them animate to like look like they're flickering. They literally like will just take a couple of them out and put different sized ones in for the next shot. It makes it look like it's flickering. But yeah,
that waterfall.
The waterfall is beautiful. It's like literally just like plastic moving around, but the way it's shot is just
so incredible.
The way the light is coming up through the grates, like the way they're illuminated, and the way like that he like silhouettes them against the waterfall.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful. And then it's a beautiful moment of, you just that Wes moment of like acceptance.
Yeah.
Like you are who you are. I am who I am. And I see you and I accept you for who you are. That you kind of get a lot of those moments in Wes films, and it's a beautiful moment, in a beautiful set. I love that moment. And then the other one that like I think especially on this viewing that made me kind of like tear up a little bit is his moment with Ash, where he's like going through their story, and Ash was like, yeah, I know. Yeah, you didn't know if I was a boy or girl. Yeah, you were like wondering what would happen. And then Mr. Fox like says something that he's obviously never said to Ash before. And he's like, Ash, I'm so glad that he was you. Like talking about their unborn child. Like that gets to me. Like I'm getting like emotional just talking about it. But just like being a father, like, and this is just that other layer that you'll get when, you become a father, or like if you're listening and you become a mother, that added layer of just like knowing that feeling with your child. Like, I know I've let you down. It's not your fault. It's my fault. I made the mistake. And, it has nothing to do with you and who you are. Like, I'm glad you are who you are. Like that. If there's anything you want as a parent, like that's what you want your kid to know, that you love them for who they are, not for anything else, but just who they are as a person.
And from that moment on, the trajectory in the relationship between Ash and Mr. Fox changes completely.
Yeah, for sure.
It's almost like once that scene is done, we can just like take a deep breath and be like, they finally said it. He finally said what Ash needed to hear the whole film, and now they can do all of this stuff together, and Ash can believe in himself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But this is, I don't know. There's a lot of other things we can talk about. We can talk about the lightning strike paintings that Mrs. Fox paints.
Yeah.
Like, what's the lightning strike all about? I almost wonder if it's like her way of, because she paints these like beautiful scenes, like these nature scenes, but all of them have like a strike of lightning in it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like her way of saying like, I'm domesticated, but there's still something wild about me.
Yeah.
Like that's how it comes out for her. Like she has like a, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess, healthy medium for her wildness. Like painting lightning strikes. And
it's very clear that she's, like whenever the rat talks about, she was sleazy or whatever, and like stopped the fight from Mr. Fox
which Willem Dafoe is great.
Oh, he's so good.
And he
stops turn and say like, we've all lived different lives and we've all done things, but it's okay. Like it's clear that she's got some kind of wild past about her she's forcing to domesticate better than Mr. Fox is, and she has an outlet for where it comes out.
Yeah. But Willem Dafoe is great for that rat, man. And
It's
you can even see him in the studio and some behind the scenes. He's like actually like doing the movements
West
that
Side
the rat
Story.
does while he's recording it.
Look to it with the switchblade and the
Yeah.
snaps. And
It's
stuff.
almost like West Side Story-esque kind of like dancing. Like
a West Side Anderson.
Yeah.
Wes Anderson side story.
Yeah. But the mom paintings. I think there might be something going on there with that. Like that's her medium for her wildness. Like she has found a healthy medium where Mr. Fox hasn't yet, sort of thing.
Another angle, just to propose the conversation, that she feels that her life is reaching a level of serenity, but there's just one thing that's not.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Fox, she knows that Fox is still got that desire to go and do things that are destructive to their family.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of angles.
Maybe. Yeah. Actually, at the end, she I don't know if you noticed, she's painting a little painting at the end when it's kind of like they've kind of accepted their place in the sewer.
Mm-hmm.
But this one has a tornado instead of a lightning strike.
That. I wonder what that means.
I don't know. It definitely represents like a transition.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't necessarily know from what to what, you know?
Yeah. Like I feel like a lightning strike is a very pointed source of natural destruction. Meanwhile, a tornado is more of a confusing conglomeration of issues. I wonder if that's there or
who knows?
No idea. Wes, if you're listening, if you've made it through the 90 minutes of this podcast already, still listen to us talk about your movie and probably get everything wrong. Just let us know. Why is it a tornado?
We would love to know. We would love to know why. I don't really have a theory of what the change there means, but it did like strike me as interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that I noticed this time, not that I noticed, but just like that being so steeped in Wes Anderson stuff, you have the Mr. Fox. I think I did that really well. So if you're listening and you think I inserted the audio on my soundboard for that, no, that was me. So if you were impressed with that, that was for sure me. If you were not impressed with that, then
I did it.
Haydn did it. Yeah. But yeah, he, Kylie is like, what's up with that? Like, and he's just like, oh, that's my trademark. And it just struck me as a very like Wes thing. Like someone like a critic asking Wes like, hey, why did you do this? And he's just like, I don't know. This is something I do. I like it.
Well, he shed some light on it in the commentary.
Okay.
Actually credits it to Donald Sutherland in MASH.
Okay.
He said that in MASH, he had, my dad watched MASH when I was growing up, but I've never watched it, like, truly myself. But in MASH, apparently, like, as he was leaving sets and things, like, whenever he was going to his post, he always had this little, like, whistle thing that he did. And I just thought it was cool. So, slapped it in there.
Right. Yeah. And, and that it does fit for that character, probably, for Mr. Fox's character. But yeah, but that's just something that, like, because I've watched a lot of Wes interviews through this podcast, and that is something that Wes will say all the time, like, hey, why did you do this in this way? And he's just like, I don't know, that I just thought it was cool, and so I did it that way.
I love that.
Which is like kind of how Mr. Fox answers. He's like, I don't know, it's my trademark.
Just what I do. You don't have one later.
I just do. I just like it, so I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Tarantino has an interview very similar to that. They're like asking Quentin why he has so much blood and gore in his films. And he just says, because blood and gore is fun.
Yeah, sure.
And they're like, okay,
why
great,
not?
cool, good talk, Quentin.
Yeah. And just another thing, you kind of mentioned the Thanksgiving dinner, but yeah, so something that that me and my wife have done at least the past 2 years. I think we've done it 2 years in a row. Once we do it this year, it'll, I think, officially be, we've declared it a tradition, but I think once we do it 3 years in a row, it will be officially a tradition. That's like an
I agree.
arbitrary number I've made up just now on the spot.
I agree, and we're the only ones to do that.
But yeah, we watch Mr. Fox every Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving, we're back home or the family's left or whatever, however Thanksgiving works for that year. It's a Thanksgiving movie. We watch it every Thanksgiving. And I think it is very like Thanksgiving. Like Wes talks about the coloring for the movie. He was like, we wanted it to be very fall. Mm-hmm. There's in like the vast majority of scenes, he even said there's like very, very little green and no blue at all. Yeah. It's like all reds and orange and yellows.
I think the only blue is in the scene with Bill Murray's character. I think he wears a blue suit, but I think that's it.
Yeah. And then you get like a little bit of blue in the waterfall scene.
Oh yeah.
So those are really like the only places where you get that cooler color. Everything else is like reds, oranges, and yellows. Yeah. Which makes it like he was going for the fall aesthetic, and like it's very fall. And then I do think it has those like Thanksgiving themes too. Like it's anti-greed. Like that's in the book, and you see that in the movie too. Like these farmers are like so greedy with their things. Like they're just disgusting in the way they make their, their foods that they eat. Like they consume their own products in disgusting ways.
Yeah. 3 chickens a day for 40
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so like you see that element, like it's anti-greed. And then I feel like it's like pro-family too. Like, can you be like for you, which I feel like those two things put together is very Thanksgiving, like anti-greed, pro-family.
Yeah. While having a clear understanding that like family is never going to be perfect. And that's sort of something that you discover every year at Thanksgiving is
right.
Oh yeah. I haven't seen, this cousin in a while. And I remember that they're not perfect, and this uncle, this and that, whatever.
Yeah.
But you're all here. You all love each other anyway.
Right. You figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like that's very Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
So they, he always wants to give a speech about what he's thankful about whenever he has the opportunity, whether it's his house or not. Even at Badger's Flint Mine, he wants to be the one giving the Thanksgiving speech.
Yeah. Don't
worry. Yeah. I see you wrote down, you just added in the show notes, the whack bat.
Yes, that's one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. I don't think there's any themes there that we need to dissect or anything.
No,
but it's so much fun.
Very fun.
And
did you see the extra feature where there's like a short clip of like Wes explaining whack bat?
No, I didn't, but I need to see it. That's wonderful. Because in the comic, it says that he doesn't understand the rules.
No, he's just making. You can tell like they're kind of sitting around a table, and he's like, there's a few like little pieces of like stuff there, and he's kind of explaining what they might animate.
Yeah.
And someone's like, well, what about this? And he's like, yeah, we can do that. Or maybe this. Like he's making it up on the fly.
That's awesome.
there's no real rules to this game.
Also, I in the commentary, he talks a little bit about it, and I was so fascinated by it because he says that he was trying to fit Owen into the movie, but he didn't really have a time, and their schedules didn't really link up or anything like that. And they were recording something else for Criterion for like one of his earlier films. They were recording a commentary or behind the scenes or something.
Yeah.
And it was him and Owen both on it. And when they like paused recording, he just started like explaining this idea that he had to do like a coach scene, and he was like, this is some of the lines of dialogue that I thought about it. And Owen was like, sure, do you have anything written down? And he was like, yeah. So he pulled out the script, and in the same recording that they were doing the Criterion, they were just like, hey, would you guys mind if we recorded 5 minutes of dialogue? And they recorded it there. So within 48 hours, he said he wrote down the map for Whack-Bat and the idea for Whack-Bat and the scene that they would have on a piece of hotel stationery where he was staying.
Nice.
So he sent a picture to Owen and was like, let's record this. They recorded it, and then he sent it to the animation team all in a span of 48 hours. So It
That's
wasn't
awesome.
really the plan. He just had the idea, and Owen was like, "Yeah, that sounds awesome," and then they got
Yeah.
super
So
fun.
that stuff in the extra features must be like after all that. Like
Yeah.
he sent it to the animators and now like he's sitting in there with them like trying to like show them.
Yeah, that was another thing he said. He said it took 48 hours to conceive and record, and then probably 6 months to actually animate and film.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
cool.
great. But yeah, let's like try to wrap this up with some final thoughts. I always like to wrap it up with like a final question or theme.
Yeah.
And what I wrote down for this one is does Mr. Fox change? Like, is Mr. Fox a changed Fox at the end of the movie, if you will? A changed Mr. Fox. Like, what makes it fantastic? Is it the change he's undergone through the movie or lack thereof? I don't know. I think it's an interesting question. And I think it stems from comparing Mr. Fox with other Wes characters that are similar. I think you have it first like in Max Fisher and Rushmore, and then you see it in Royal Tenenbaum, Gene Hackman's character, and then I think too some in Steve Zissou from The Life Aquatic. You have this kind of character that kind of recurs, and it's kind of this like charismatic leader, like impresario leader kind of character that is very charismatic. People were drawn to him, which Clooney is perfect for with his voice. You want to root for him, even though like he has these flaws, just like by the way his voice is. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like these are all similar characters, and I think it's an interesting thread through his movies of these characters going through the movie. And like my question is always, is that character different than they were at the start of the movie? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say that he changes, at least in a significant way. Um, because if you told me that 6 months after the movie was filmed, or one Foxy or whatever after the movie was filmed, he went and started stealing again, I would believe you.
Yeah.
Because I think he's changed in that he appreciates the family that he has, and he has come to terms, I think, more at the end of the film than at the beginning of the film with the domestic life that he's living. I think the conversation, the scene with the wolf, which Wes says is the reason why he made the film. I think that's a moment where you can see, especially in those tears that well up in his eyes looking at the wolf, that he understands that he's a wild animal, but he understands that this is the life that he has decided to live. And you have to live by the commitments that you make. Not just the emotions that you feel or the things that you try to build in your life are going to fall apart. I think that he comes to terms with that at the end of this film, that he has to look at his family and acknowledge that, you're going to have desires and you're going to have dreams and things like that, but you've got people that are relying on you and they come first, whatever that means for you.
Yeah, I almost wonder if his phobia of wolves that he kind of talks about through the movie is like the fear inside of him that he has that wildness of a wolf in there. So it's less of like a phobia. I don't know. It's less about, it goes back to that inner conflict. It's less about, he has a phobia of like real wolves, and it's more of like an inner phobia of like who he really is, which I think you see for sure. And that is a touching moment. It doesn't like hit me as hard as those other ones we talked about, but it's definitely a touching moment. For a lot of viewers I've heard talk about that moment as being very like emotional and touching for them. But it definitely is for the character, the Mr. Fox character.
Yeah. I think that's the moment that he realizes that, like you're saying, that's the internal conflict of the whole movie, that fear of wolves that he has the whole time. It's not really a phobia. It's just a fear of coming to terms with who you are on your inside.
Right.
And when he sees that wolf, he has to realize, as soon as I get on this motorcycle, which is so absurd, and drive away, I'm accepting that I can't be a wild animal anymore. I have
Right.
to, this life that I've decided to live to my fullest, or the people around me are going to suffer like what has happened in the previous hour of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And, I think that is a thread that carries through all these like similar characters that he has. They go through the movie, and the change, like, so like you'll watch a lot of movies and the change will be like, I don't know, this character changes so drastically where they almost have like a different personality or a different like defining characteristic by the end of the movie. And I feel like the changes that Wes's characters undergo are more subtle. And I think part of that comes from like what we talked about, like he cares about people, like who they are, like as individuals. And so I feel like when Wes, and maybe it's not something he like actively thinks about, but just kind of comes out of how he naturally thinks about people. So when he's thinking about, okay, what does it look like for Mr. Fox to grow as a person? He's not so much worried about how can I change them to think completely differently than they did at the beginning of the movie? How can I change them to have a different personality or a different set of values? He's not thinking about that, and you don't really get that out of these characters. They don't have a different set of values necessarily. They don't have different like personality. They don't have, I don't see like that sort of change in these characters. It's more of this like this acceptance, like we've been talking about. Like these characters come to terms with who they are, what their situation is, and what they're going to have to do to get by with who they are. Like Mr. Fox at the end of the movie is still giving like this very sort of self-centered speech about like the, being able to eat at this grocery store, and it's still like he hasn't changed a whole lot. But his acceptance of his place, like where he is, how he's going to, how he can still be who he is, where he is, while also like not neglecting his responsibilities. I think that's where the growth comes. There's almost this like very graceful theme of acceptance. Like I'm going to meet this character. Wes like meets his characters where they are and gives them like that grace, that acceptance of, I see you, I know who you are. Like you don't have to change fundamentally who you are. Maybe you need to change like how you relate to your situation, but he just like has this incredible grace for his characters that I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And you see that in that the way that they change is very like subtle. Like Mr. Fox is still very much Mr. Fox at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But he does, I think the main way, you mentioned the wolf scene, but I think like the main way I saw it was, she announces that to him that she's pregnant again. And this time they both glow.
Yeah.
Like in that very first scene, like she glows, she's glowing and he sees her glowing. But in this scene, it's like they're together now. Like there's this acceptance of where they are, who they are as a family.
I think you hit it on the money when you said earlier, like whenever they're in the cage, when you first find out you're having a kid, you sort of fear and lament for the life that you're about to lose, the amount of freedom you're about to lose. But when he has that conversation with Ash and is able to physically see the life that he breathes into Ash just with his he's shifted. He's not a wild animal who now has to care for a child. Now he's a father. And he's just as excited as she
Now
is.
he's a father that's a wild animal.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's almost like the shifting of priorities. Like I'm going to shift the priority of my wildness to be under like my role as a father and a husband sort of thing. Yeah.
Shifting the priority.
Like he's still the wild animal. Like there's never a question in the movie of like, is he going to stop being a wild animal? Like I think there's a definitive, like, no, he will always be a wild animal. But the question is like, can his family accept him for who he is as a wild animal? And can like he accept like his responsibility to his family? Like, which I think is, I don't know, it's really cool. But yeah, let's wrap up with our ratings. Obviously, I think it's pretty apparent where me and Hayden both stand on this one.
5 stars.
5 stars. We're in agreement. This actually moved up for me. I've seen this movie this was probably my 5th time watching this movie. Mm-hmm. So I watched it for the first time, years and years ago. And then we started our Thanksgiving watching a couple years ago. So I've watched it at least 2 or 3 times on Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. So I think this is my 4th or 5th time watching it. Wow. And I've always had it as a 4.5 star movie. Really high. And this time, just like digging into it more, I was just like, man, I just love this movie so much. It's 5 stars. It actually moved up to my number 3 spot as of now, and as we're going through. So I still have Grand Budapest at 1. We'll see where it goes after we do it for the podcast. But yeah, Grand Budapest at 1. Royal Tenenbaums moved up to number 2 for me after that viewing, and Mr. Fox with this one jumped to Rushmore, which is saying a lot. Yeah, all 4 of those movies are 5 stars for me. So
I think that's my current ranking as well. I think
awesome.
Even though Mr. Fox is my favorite movie of all time, I still recognize that it isn't the best movie ever made. Like it's not
sure.
It's not any of those amazing movies.
Yeah, those are different questions. Yeah,
and I think in the quality of his films, I think that I'm with you with Budapest, Tenenbaums, and then Mr. Fox.
Yeah, smart man.
Yeah, I learned from the best.
Yeah. So next week, Moonrise Kingdom. So I'm excited about that. We'll have a new guest on for that. So we have that to look forward to. This has been a really fun conversation on Mr. Fox. But now we are going to take a break. So we will see you back after the break with some movie news and our movie draft segment. So see you in a sec. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on the Establishing Shot today. We hope you're enjoying the episode so far, and we hope you will stick around for the segments we have coming up after this quick break. But during this break, I wanted to tell you how you can get more involved with the Establishing Shot podcast. There are several ways you can do this. The main way you can do it is by going to establishingshotpod.com, our website where you can find all sorts of information like episodes with the show notes on there, information about our guests for each episode. You can find reviews there. And there's a page where you can actually leave a review on the website if you want to. You can see all the platforms where the podcast is available, like Apple, Spotify, all the major podcast platforms, and even a link to our YouTube page where you can see a video version of the podcast. So please go to the website. And the place I want to highlight there is our donate page, which has information about our Establishing Shot family. This is a way that you can subscribe to the podcast to support all the efforts and the stuff that goes into making this podcast good and making it better than it even is now. We have different tiers that you can subscribe to, starting at $5. And what this will do is you'll be able to support the podcast, help me make it better. And also at the same time, you'll get early and ad-free episodes. You'll get access to our Discord server where you can join in and just kind of talking about movies with a community that loves film. And so we would love to have you in there. And then the higher up in the tiers you go, the more you get. Even things like chats and video chats that we'll do every once in a while where we get to talk about in more detail stuff that we're talking about on the podcast. So I hope you'll subscribe to that. Choose a tier that fits your budget and I would love for you to support the podcast in that way. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is where you can find us on social media. You can find me personally on Twitter at @DEliPrice, and you can also follow me on Letterboxd. Letterboxd is kind of like a social media for movie reviews, so you can read my reviews there, and you can find me there at just Eli Price, no spaces or anything. So I'm on Twitter and Letterboxd. You can find the podcast on all the social platforms as well, such as Twitter at eShotPod, and then on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok at Establishing Shot Pod. So make sure to follow us so you don't miss anything. If you have any questions or comments about the episode or about the podcast, you can always email us at establishingshotpod@gmail.com. And the very last thing I want to do before you get back into the episode today is just ask you to please go to Spotify and Apple and leave some ratings and reviews. That really helps the visibility of the podcast and gets it in more people's podcast feeds. And so we hope you will do that for us, and we would greatly appreciate it. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode, and I will see you next time on the Establishing Shot podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back from the break. Me and Haydn are still here, getting ready to jump into our movie news section. So here we are, 7 episodes in. I forget every week to see if I can find like a news drop. So I still don't have like the do. But so I'm still having to do it myself. Yeah. But movie news starting now. But yeah, so that's my terrible attempt at a joke. So if you're out there and you're laughing, you just laughed at a really bad joke. So I don't know how that makes you feel about yourself, but you should feel great about it, because bad jokes are funny too. So yeah, movie news. The Flash. That's kind of like that's the, I guess, pushing force behind the speed force, if you will, behind this movie news topic. But yeah, The Flash is releasing the weekend that this episode is releasing. And so I figured we'd talk a little bit about extended cinematic universes. What are extended cinematic universes? Not like we're not defining it for people. They know what it is, but like, why do we have them, and are they good? Do we like them? I guess that's the questions we're asking.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I do not like extended universes, I don't think.
No?
I think I
okay.
did. I don't think I do anymore.
Okay. Why is that?
I think
Let me ask you this. Why is that? Because let me preface it with this.
Yes.
I am notorious in our friend group for like being an MCU hater, even though I don't hate everything the MCU puts out. I'm like tired of it.
Yeah.
But I don't hate it. But that's kind of like the reputation I have in our friend group is like MCU hater. But you're not in that group. You're still like, you still get excited about the new Marvel movies, if I'm not mistaken.
Quantumania was my last straw. And
okay.
I think it pulled me out. I think I'm done.
The Guardians didn't pull you back in?
I don't think so. Okay. So. Unfortunately, no. I was really sad that the raccoon was being abused. But I don't think it was enough to have me buy into the next 30 movies that Marvel's going to make. I think these extended cinematic universes, there's just a level of diminishing returns that start to happen. And the question that I ask every time I watch it is like, are you making a movie because you have a story to tell? Or are you making a movie to make money?
Right.
Like you look at something like, like Creed.
Mm-hmm.
Creed was not a money grab. Creed was a new and unique story that was made.
Right. And that you could argue that's a Rocky extended cinematic universe.
That's what I'm saying is it's not, they're not just saying like, well, let's make a 7th Rocky movie because people keep seeing Rocky movies.
Right. There's a degree for sure in making Creed where they were, I'm for sure, like in their mind, they're like, this is a franchise, a successful franchise. You know, we want to make, they did have something unique to say with Creed, I think, especially the original one. But yeah, there's definitely something there of like, we can make more money if we do it this way.
Yeah, because they could have just made a boxing movie, but they made Rocky adjacent boxing movie. Which I don't blame them for.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're in an IP time where IP is king, so go ahead and use it. You know, like I see you have listed on the outline, like Star Trek. I think that the Star Trek reboot with Chris Pine, one of the best reboots we've ever gotten. Like,
there's a couple of good ones there. Yeah,
they did a fantastic job. But if they'd just made another sci-fi movie, it probably wouldn't have done as well. But I still think like they made that film. Like if you compare the newest Star Trek trilogy to the newest Star Wars trilogy, the Star Trek trilogy had a heart behind it, and the Star Wars trilogy was to sell toys and make money. And I just feel a lot more actual storytelling.
Yeah, you almost sound like you would be with me on which I don't think you really have a stance on Last Jedi, but like that's one reason I liked The Last Jedi, because it was interesting. But we're not going to get into that because I already get enough flack for that. Yeah. But on Star Wars, I mean, Star Wars, Disney has made into kind of this extended cinematic universe with and it's Disney started making it a movie and TV show crossover universe with Marvel and with Star Wars now. And I don't know, to me, it's just kind of it's overwhelming for one thing. Like, I have to watch all these other things to understand what's happening in this new thing. So there's that element that's just kind of like tiring and overwhelming. And it's just a slog to get through. like I have to watch all these other things to watch this new thing. And I guess like there's an audience for it. Like Marvel heads are just always going to love all the Marvel movies because they just love the characters and the comics. And so it's like a new thing with that character. And so it's like they're going to get excited about it. But I just wonder, like, the general public, like, is the general public going to get tired?
Yeah, I think
are they going to just keep watching them? Because I'm at the point where, like, I still watch all the Marvel movies because I feel like part of me feels like I have to because I'm so far in. It's probably like an unhealthy, like, borderline OCD thing of like I have to finish a thing. Like if I don't like to start something and not finish it for stuff like that, like movie universes. Like I've watched this many Marvel movies, I've got to watch all of them now.
I think Marvel movies have taken the place of like the family film, and that's the market that they're bleeding off of now. Like if you're going to take your kids to go see a movie and they're not showing any other kids movies around, like besides like I think Super Mario Bros. Is the first movie that was truly like a family movie that wasn't a Marvel film.
Yeah. And it did good, man. It hit the $1 billion mark.
Yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed it. It felt like a movie made for 7-year-olds, and we haven't had any of those in a really long time.
Yeah.
But we just
or 4-year-olds. My son gave his review on episode 1.
Yeah, on his Letterboxd account.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I don't know. It's just weird. You think about, so like thinking back in the day, you had like the Universal monster movies, and that was kind of, I guess you could almost think of that as like this extended cinematic universe, because there were crossovers sometimes with those movies. Yeah. But I don't know, it was different back then. For one, you didn't have to see all the other movies to understand what was happening in the new monster movie. Even though there were like sometimes, overlapping monsters, like you didn't necessarily have to watch the other ones.
Yeah.
I feel like it's sort of similar with like the Kong Godzilla stuff happening right now. Like you could probably go watch whatever new Kong Godzilla movie comes out and just enjoy it for what it is. And maybe there's a few things with characters that like you didn't know because you haven't seen the previous ones, but you can still like enjoy it.
Yeah,
because
I love those movies. I have so much fun with those movies. I think they're bad, but I have so much fun with them because, like, when I hopped into Godzilla versus Kong, I didn't need to know which one of the monsters he fought in Godzilla King of Monsters was the toughest to know that monkey versus lizard, let's go, like.
Right. Yeah, I didn't see the Kong Skull Island I didn't see that one, but I saw Kong versus Godzilla because it kind of feels like a movie where you just, when I hear there's a movie coming out that's King Kong versus Godzilla, I'm like, well, I've got to see it. I've got to see what happens.
It doesn't matter what happens in it. It doesn't matter what happened before it because it's just big monsters beating up big monsters.
Right.
And like, from someone who just finished saying, tell a story, like don't make a movie unless you actually have a story to tell. They're not really telling a story there, but claiming to try to. And that's the thing is Marvel specifically, every movie they come out, they're like, oh, this is going to be the next installation of the epic saga. It's continuing.
Yeah.
And then it just isn't. Like either.
And that was my problem. That was one of my problems with Guardians, like the new Guardians Volume 3. I know you liked it. And the other people in our little like movie friend group here in town, they all really liked it. And I just felt like it was like forcing me to feel emotion. Like, we know we have been like letting you down as far as like having some emotional stakes. And so like, here you go, sad puppy eye raccoon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, but like,
no, I get that.
Yeah. Here's a sad puppy eye raccoon that actually doesn't have any agency in the movie. He's just in a coma and doesn't actually get to decide what he's going to be and do. He just, everyone tells him still what to do. Like, I don't know. I just felt like it was like really cheap emotional.
Yeah. Really, I think what I enjoyed most about it is that it was self-contained. It trying to set up the next thing and like.
Yeah, I appreciated that it was mostly that.
My description of it, what in my review was that it's like a ham sandwich with Doritos at the end of a day of fishing.
Right. Yeah. I saw that.
Not even that good of a meal, but you're so hungry because you haven't had anything that isn't setting up the next thing or trying to be bigger than it is. That you're just like, oh my gosh, funny characters and a halfway compelling plot. Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Quantum Mania just was like.
Yeah, I don't even know what
I was so tired by the end of that movie of like watching it. And it sucks because there was some like fun, I guess, CGI stuff happening. Like it was definitely like Marvel Studios attempt at like Star Wars.
Yeah.
But like not as interesting to me. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. There's
underwhelming plot.
The DCEU is tired at this point, and they haven't even really like had any success.
Yeah.
But the studio is just such a mess, like that. It's already like wearing out its welcome.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see what happens with the Flash. Like, is the Flash gonna like revitalize this DC extended universe or? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. You obviously, we talked in our summer movie preview, movie news section a few episodes ago, just about the kind of like gray cloud hovering over the movie that is Ezra Miller.
Yeah.
But like, I was never going to see the Flash movie because Ezra Miller was in it anyway. could have been anyone, and I'm going to see it because he's my favorite DC character, and so I'm going to see the Flash movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess the question at the end of the day is like, how long can these extended universe movies last? And I'm just not sure. I don't know. The pessimistic side of me is just thinks like this is just part of living in a, materialistic capitalist society, and people are just going to keep shelling out money to see these movies.
Yeah.
The optimistic side of me thinks like, I think maybe people will get tired of them, and like the art will shift into like something else, maybe problematic in a different way, but at least it'll be a new problem,
Yeah. I think my half-baked opinion is I think it's going to end up with a reputation similar to comic books. We saw when comic books first entered the scene, they were such a big deal, but then you had to read 100 volumes to catch up to wherever was currently happening, that they eventually just isolated themselves, and it was the comic book readers versus the rest of the readers. There was no casual comic book readers. You had to be all in. And I think we're going to get to that point where it's going to be hard to casually watch MCU movies.
Yeah.
Because especially I'm in middle school ministry, and my sixth graders are students that are born in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
They were not alive whenever the first Iron Man came out.
Right.
And they're not going to sit down and watch 30 movies to catch up to what's happening. So eventually there's just going to be a generational disconnect because they didn't grow up with it and they don't care about it anymore.
Yeah. I guess that's the best thing about Gen Z for me, is hopefully they will make Marvel, the MCU, die.
Yeah. MCU, the chosen generation, prophesies the downfall of Marvel.
Yeah. And this has been your this has been your cynical movie news section.
Yeah. Just because it's late.
Yeah. I don't really have like an opinion other than anytime there's a extended universe movie and just a new interesting movie, I'm always going to choose the new interesting movie that's unique, or just not a movie where it has to be connected to a million other things. So I don't know, but I will see the Flash. And this is kind of like my segue into our movie draft section, just like knowing I've seen enough like talk about the movie and like one of the trailers where I know what storyline they're doing. They're doing Flashpoint. So I'm sorry if I spoiled that for people that have been avoiding Flash talk, and I just ruined it for you. I don't really feel that bad, but Flashpoint is like my favorite Flash storyline. And it involves some time travel. Like Flash moves so fast he can travel in time. And so
physically speaking, whatever.
Well, it does. It does. Trust me, it does.
I trust you.
It makes sense.
Much sense as Tenet.
Yeah. But yeah, well, that was my segue. I am looking forward to the Flash movie. I hope they move on from Ezra Miller. I'll just say that out loud so that people aren't thinking that I'm one of these like weird studio heads that's like praising Ezra Miller. Like maybe he's good at acting or maybe not. But they definitely should move on from him. I'm just making that known. That's my opinion before people come after me. But yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with it. I'm excited about it just because I'm a fan of the character. But yeah, our movie draft section is related to that in the sense of time travel, because today we are doing a draft of time travel movies. Ooh, very fun. Yeah, so I didn't really put when I sent this to Hayden, I just said time travel movies. I didn't really put like any hardline stipulations on it. I just said time travel movies. So
Oh
I
well.
guess he could have interpreted this however he wanted to, but yeah, we're gonna do it. I will say, Hayden, this happens when you come on as a second guest. You don't get the first pick this time just because you're a
If you
guest.
tried to offer it to me, I would throw it back to you. So
You got the first pick last time. I'm
Yes.
taking the first pick this time.
please take it.
But yeah, our movie draft, my go-to explanation, if this is your first listen to this segment, is for sports people, this is, you're drafting the best players, and once they're drafted, they're off the board. So if you get that reference, great. If not, this is picking your kickball team in the playground, at the playground. You don't want the sucky players first. You want to pick the best players to be on your team, and you want your team to win, because we're going to put this to a poll, see what the people think. Hayden, I think I like barely squeaked out a win
You were trying
against you in the last poll, but it was close enough where like a couple more hours you could have pulled back ahead.
Yeah, but you won with The Last Jedi, so that's a feat in itself.
That is. Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to take the first pick this time.
Please
So
go for it.
I'm going to come out I'm coming out of the gate like blazing like a pine cone in whack-bat. And
Yes.
I am picking Back to the Future. It's not my favorite of all the ones that I wrote down for sure, but it is the definitive time travel movie, and I feel like if you have the number one pick, you have to take Back to the Future.
I agree. I think it's the number one. It's the time travel movie.
It's
Maybe
a
not
great movie.
but
It's a great fun movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Where are you going? Number two. Pick number two.
Pick it's a tough spot. I'm torn here. So I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna take the movie that when I first got into movies, it was one of my favorite movies. It sat up at the number one spot for a good while. I'm gonna take Interstellar.
Ooh, that was a gut punch. That was a gut.
Sorry to take your Christopher Nolan love, but a movie that uses time travel in probably the most rational way, without just assuming the rules are the way they are. The fact that time travel in Interstellar is not reversible, you can't go back and fix it. Just hard to do stuff.
Man, yeah.
Number two for you.
Gosh, I probably would have taken that next. I love Interstellar. It's so good.
Yeah.
Man, Matthew McConaughey, he gets me every time. Man, I don't know where to go next. I have a couple of movies that I guess I'll go ahead and take like the cinephile pick and go with 2001: A Space Odyssey. I rewatched this recently, and man, it's just like, it's a masterpiece of a movie. Like, it's not for everyone. It's not a movie I would just like be like, hey, you like, if you're getting into movies and you want to really get into movies, then like after you've been into movies for a while, then go watch 2001. But it's not a movie I would recommend to someone who isn't interested in getting really into movies, because there's not a whole lot going on in this movie, but it's visually like just masterful, incredible. But yeah, there's some time travel in it, in the sense that you don't know where you are in the end of the movie time wise. Like, something happens. I'm not going to give it away. It's a very trippy scene, and there's definitely some moving into the future sort of thing happening. But yeah, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece. Where are you going
Love
with the
it.
number 3 pick?
This is actually my number 2 pick. Since you went
Well,
first.
the number 3 overall.
Number 3 overall. Excuse me. Number 3 overall. Number 4 overall. Right, and number 2.
You're right.
My book.
We were both wrong.
It's late. We're both wrong.
Gosh.
I'm gonna dip into the dip out of the science fiction and dip into the soft science fiction, dip into the comedy, if you will.
Let's do it.
Groundhog Day.
Okay. I thought you were going somewhere else.
Oh no.
But Groundhog Day is a great pick.
I love me some Groundhog Day.
You got the Bill Murray, relevant to the Wes Anderson series we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Badger himself. It's too bad they didn't make him a groundhog in Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah, that would have been a great little callback.
Yeah. But
I'm just at number 3.
Yeah.
Number 5 overall.
It's been a long time since I've seen Groundhog Day. So I probably need to watch it again to really have an opinion on it.
It holds up. It really does.
Yeah.
It's just a great.
I believe you. So we decided on 7 movies, right?
7 movies, which is a lot of time travel movies.
It is a lot of time travel movies. I've got to fit in. I'm going to get a good array of types of movies. Man, I know where I'm going next. I'm going with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Man, I wanted to steal that one late round.
Ooh, I love Bill and Ted. It's a hilarious movie. Like,
I'm assuming you're taking Excellent Adventure and not Bogus Journey or Face.
Right. Excellent Adventure, the original. Wonderful. Bill and Ted. It's the best one. Yeah, it's, Keanu Reeves and blanking on the other guy's name as Bill and Ted. These like goofy kind of idiots.
Yeah.
They're kind of just like dumb idiots that are trying to write a history paper and happen upon a time machine because strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Yeah.
So
great. The boys.
Yeah. Let's just say their history paper knocks it out of the park.
Yeah. Phenomenal presentation.
Bill and Ted, great movie. That's my 3rd pick, 5th overall. But yeah, where are you going with the next pick, Haydn?
Next pick, I'm going to go back to a little bit of sci-fi. This movie, it was one of the first movies that really challenged me to look deeper into movies than what they are surface level. It's a movie that I think is wholly underrated, movie that I love. And I'm going to go with Denis Villeneuve's Arrival.
Okay. See, this is the movie that my wife told me did not count as time travel.
Counts.
I agree.
It's aliens going back in time to reveal pieces of time travel history and the ability to see other points in time.
Yeah. You're literally learning. Well, okay. I'm not going to give away because this is, let's try not to make this too spoilery.
Sorry.
But
if you haven't seen Arrival, go watch it tonight. What do you think?
Just go watch it. We won't say anything else about it because, man, is it good.
Just aliens in time. It's just great. And then Jeremy Renner not hit by a snowplow. It's great.
Okay. Where will I go next? Because you've taken 2 of the ones that are like towards the top of my list.
Well, so have you, Felix. There's not that many people.
Okay. Okay. I am going to go with Palm Springs.
Great.
It's Andy Samberg comedy. It's kind of like a riff on Groundhog Day.
Yes.
And I actually, like I said, I need to rewatch Groundhog Day to have a good opinion, but I like this more than I remember liking Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
I think it's a Hulu movie, so it's probably on Hulu. You can probably go watch it on Hulu, but it's Andy Samberg. Forget the actress. I would have to pull up the Letterboxd or IMDb page to remember. But yeah, it's a really funny movie. And I feel like it has, Groundhog Day is all like Bill Murray. Like, it's about his character, and I feel like you get a little bit more like character dynamic with the female in the relationship with this one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I think it's funnier, but maybe just because it was made by closer to my generation. So like a lot of the jokes are more like for me than Groundhog Day was. But yeah, I do believe Groundhog Day still holds up, but I liked Palm Springs a lot. It was a very funny movie. You get in that day loop where you're waking up, you die or whatever, and you wake up and it's the same day over and over.
And it's got J.K. Simmons, and anything that has J.K. Simmons just
Oh yeah,
gets to the top of my list in general.
All right.
My number 4 pick. I'm going to take yet another Groundhog Day-esque film.
I know where you're going.
Take a completely slept-on film that I believe is just one of the most fun science fiction films that have come out in the past decade. And I'm going to take Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
The Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt film about an alien invasion where the Nexus brain, whatever, ends up tied up to Tom Cruise, and he gets to relive the same day over and over again to figure out how to save humanity.
Yeah. Great movie.
A fun time, man.
It's super fun. It's a really fun movie. And so I was struggling to pick this or Palm Springs. I went Palm Springs. I probably should have went this first.
It's two sides of the same coin, right?
Yeah.
It's like
I went the comedy route.
Yeah.
Palm
Springs has got a level of rewatchability that's just wonderful.
For sure. I've got two straight comedies in a row, so I've got to get some drama. Gotta get serious here. So what am I gonna do? That's the question. There's a movie I should probably take to pander to the crowd that is just not a favorite of mine like it is for some people.
I hope it's not the one that I see on my list because I'm in that crowd. If it is, but just make your pick.
I don't know. You know what? I'm just throwing the seriousness out the window. I don't think you'll probably I bet this isn't even on your list, but I don't even care because I love it. It's my favorite Christmas movie, The Muppet Christmas Carol.
The Muppet I didn't even know it was a time travel movie.
Well, yeah, he traveled, the Ghost of Christmas Past, Ghost of Christmas Present, Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come.
I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, he's traveling through time, seeing what's happening in the past and the future. Yes. So, but of all the Christmas Carol adaptations, The Muppet Christmas Carol is the best, and I think right up there with A Christmas Story is the best Christmas movie, and I love it. It's hilarious. You have Gonzo pretending that he is in actuality Charles Dickens as the narrator. Man, I love Muppet Christmas Carol, and it's now revealed that it wasn't on your list, but I don't care. I'm taking it. I could have taken it last, but
yeah,
I love it too much to leave it for last.
Yeah, give it a high spot.
Yeah. Where are you going next?
For my number 5 pick, I'm going to go Tenet.
Okay.
Tenet is maybe not the most highly acclaimed movie that Nolan has put out about time travel, but I walked out of that theater feeling like I could fly. It was just it's so visually interesting, and even though the temporal time pincer move, whatever, at the end makes no sense at all, it's just one of the coolest action scenes I've ever seen on film. So Tenet is locked in for me.
I bet there's a director's cut out there that has, you know, a 5-minute scene of someone explaining that so that
That's
it
all we
does
needed.
make sense.
That's all we needed.
But not that you might have been able to hear it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
this Tenet is actually a movie I didn't hate. I was positive on it. It's probably my least favorite Nolan movie, but I've only seen it once, and it's one that kind of begs to be seen again.
Yeah.
And I've wanted to watch it again since I saw it in theaters, and I just haven't been able to yet.
It's just visually so fun.
It really is. There's a lot of cool stuff visually going on.
Reverse bungee doesn't make any sense, but man, it's cool. Like pulling bullets through the wall. It's just fun.
Yeah, I agree. Man, this is tough.
Yeah.
So, man. Yeah, okay. I'm going with this one. I'm a fan of this franchise in general. The movies aren't the best in the world, but this movie is probably my favorite of all of them. And I'm going to go with Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah, you've got a masterful director directing this one, which I think is probably why it's my favorite. But yeah, you've got, you know, Hermione with the little time necklace thing.
Yeah.
Going back in time over and over to catch new classes, and then it comes into play at the end. Which, man, I actually read the books through all of them a couple years ago. I didn't read them as kids. I read them as an adult, and it's a great series of books, and I enjoy the movies a good bit too. But this is definitely, I think, the best, just movie wise, of all of them. And the time travel aspect of it, you know, coming into play is really fun. And like interesting in the way that they weave it into the narrative. So I'm going to go with that. You know, it's one that, you know, if you're going to take a Harry Potter movie, you might as well take the best one.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, great pick. Great pick. For number 6, I'm going to take a film that I watched over and over again when I was a kid because it was on FX.
Okay.
It is an ultimate dad movie. It is a dirty, grungy, and fast-paced movie from the creator of Top Gun and Man on Fire. I'm going to take Deja Vu.
All right.
Denzel Washington dad movie about a terrorist attack on a ferry full of Marines that Denzel has to use crazy technology to go back and figure out how it happened. And
Yeah.
I've never met anyone else who is fond of this movie, but it's the 6th pick, and it's so much fun.
I remember seeing it. So when did this movie come out?
Let me check. 2006. So
2006. That sounds about right.
the peak of wild, fast-paced Tony Scott movies.
Yeah, it came out like I was in high school when it came out. And so I remember watching it. I didn't see it in theaters, so it was probably like 2007 before I saw it. But I remember liking it when I was in high school. I don't know what I would think about it now, and I don't remember anything about it other than Denzel.
It's right in between Man on Fire and Unstoppable, the train movie.
Okay.
It's just a blend of all those things together. And
yeah. Even if the movie sucks, if I were to go back and watch it, I'm like, oh, this sucks. Which, no offense to you, but Denzel would probably still be great.
I call those movies Mountain Dew movies, okay? Because I believe that there's good movies, there's bad movies, and then there's Mountain Dew movies.
Yeah, okay.
So, Mountain Dew, if I've got to list my top 5 sodas, it's not in my top 5.
Yeah.
But every now and then, a good Mountain Dew hits, you know?
All right, I hear you.
With your bros, pop a Mountain Dew. That's this movie, Deja Vu.
Hey, if that works for you, that works for you, you know? I don't hate it. I remember liking it when I was in high school, and so I have no opinion on it now, so I can't hate on it. Where are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4,
This is
5,
your final
6. Is
pick?
this my last pick?
I think this is your
Good
last pick.
grief. Oh, man.
Choose wisely. I've got a wild last pick though, so don't worry.
Ooh, wild. Should I
Yeah.
go wild with my last pick?
I don't know. I mean, I am.
Man.
I had a list
So-
of 11 films, and all of them except for 2 are gone, and I don't like one of them. So
Yeah. So I have one that I could go with that I remember enjoying, but I hardly remember anything about the movie other than like the actors that are in it. And I don't know if that's where you're going. Probably not by the sound of it.
I hope not.
But I don't think I'm gonna go with that one. I'm gonna go. So part of the fun of this is people hearing about movies, maybe that they've never seen before, and having the chance to go watch it. And so maybe this will turn some people on to some more, getting into some more foreign films. I'm gonna go with Wong Kar-wai's 2046. So if you're listening to this
I've never heard
and so there you go. That's part of the reason we do this.
Mm.
I could have went with my other choice, which you've almost certainly heard of, but instead I'm giving you something you've never heard of. Wong Kar-wai, Chinese director, Hong Kong director, probably most well known for the movie In the Mood for Love. And 2046 is actually sort of a sequel to In the Mood for Love. I remember watching it and not realizing until way later into the movie that it was, this is related to In the Mood for Love somehow. But Wong Kar-wai is a very I wouldn't recommend seeing this movie first of his. Like there's some other ones that you should probably watch. Like I think is the one you should see if you're getting into him is Chungking Express.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good introduction to Wong Kar-wai. But In the Mood for Love is a masterpiece movie for me. And I love In the Mood for Love. Just it's a visually just incredible movie. 2046 I don't love as much, but it's still a very interesting movie. It's the reason it's a time travel movie is because he talks about Wong Kar-wai has a very poetic narration sort of thing that he does in his movies. And so you hear the kind of main character narrating and talking about this train that you can, everyone wants to take this train to 2046, and you get on this train and it's kind of like this dreamy reliving of past loves, but also that you get that he's remembering, or you're not really sure if he's remembering it or if it really is this sci-fi train where he's going back and experiencing it again. But also 2046 is this idea of this place and time that you can go to, that's was impactful for you, or meant something in your love life or whatever. It's hard to explain, but because it's a very visual movie, so it's hard to explain with words.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got that time travel kind of, it's a stretch, I guess, on the time travel thing in a similar way that Arrival would be, maybe. But I'm counting it, and hopefully this turns some people on to Wong Kar-wai, who is probably just one of the best living directors that we have right now. Yeah. So yeah, 2046. That's my wild, off the wall pick that no one's ever heard of. That will probably hurt me in the poll.
I'm gonna counter your wild, off the wall pick, which nobody's probably ever heard of.
Okay.
Very similar wild, off the wall pick that perhaps a little bit more people, because it is an English film, have heard of. And I'm going to take Sam Raimi's Army of Darkness.
Okay, yeah.
Heard of this film, Eli?
Yeah, I'm aware of it. I haven't seen it, but I would like to.
it brings me so much joy. I love Sam Raimi. I love The Evil Dead and The Evil Dead 2. And this film is just phenomenal. Bruce Campbell, my boy, is accidentally transported in his car with his chainsaw hand, with his boomstick shotgun to 1300 AD, where he has to battle skeletons and save princesses.
Right.
Cure the Necronomicon so that he can get home.
I love it. If you've never seen a Sam Raimi film, Sam Raimi directed the Multiverse of Madness Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah.
So more people have probably seen that are listening than Army of Darkness or one of his other films. So just imagine the strangest, most weird, uncomfortable parts of Multiverse of Madness and just take that and expand it over a whole movie.
Yeah.
And that's a Sam Raimi film.
That's Sam Raimi. I love Sam Raimi. He makes me happy. The tagline for this film says, "Trapped in time, surrounded by evil, low on gas."
Love it.
Need to say any more? It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
And Evan, if you're listening to this pick is for you. My buddy Evan Taylor, I bought him a T-shirt that had the Army of Darkness thing on it. The
poster
for his birthday. So
shout out to Evan. I don't know Evan, but shout out.
Shout out to him.
Yeah. That's great. Okay. So I'm going to read off our picks in a second, but we'll mentions. You might have some too. Looper was one. That was the other one I was thinking about there at the end. JGL and Bruce Willis as older and younger versions of the same character kind of thing going on. It's an interesting movie. I like Rian Johnson. He makes interesting films. I think they're fun. But I don't remember a whole lot about it, so I didn't pick it. But I do remember enjoying it. It's a Wonderful Life is one that I was talking about that I'm not as big a fan of, but I know some people just adore it. But it's definitely got some time travel aspects to it. I've always thought of it as like just an extended Twilight Zone episode. That's kind of what it feels like. But It's a Wonderful Life, Looper, and some superhero ones like Watchmen and X-Men Days of Future Past, which is probably one of the better X-Men movies. Those are some good honorable mentions, I think. Yeah. Did you have any that I didn't mention?
A couple of honorable mentions. Time travel movies that didn't quite make it into my top 7, but were, I watched them recently. Adam Driver's 65, the new movie where he gets shot back in time on a colony ship and has to fight dinosaurs. It gave me like After Earth vibes, but not as bad, but still. Hey, Gas giving up. Sticking his head in. That one was fun. The Time Machine, H.G. Wells's film he obviously didn't direct it, but H.G. Wells's The Time Machine is such a weird look at time travel. Things like Avengers Endgame, that's a time travel movie, right?
It is.
They go back in time. He looks at his butt.
That's my least favorite aspect of it, but
but it happened. And then sorry, my brain just blanked.
Did you mention 65?
Yeah, 65.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's fine. Oh, the Jake Gyllenhaal one. What's it called?
Donnie Darko.
Source Code, the other one. Donnie Darko.
Source Code.
Source Code. When they're on like the train, and he keeps like Groundhog Day in the train, and that one's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Neither of us mentioned Terminator movies
either.
Oh man, I didn't even think about Terminator.
It's been so long since I've seen them. I feel like I can't pick them.
Yeah. I'd have definitely subbed out Judgment Day from one of these. That's a fantastic movie. It is.
So
people will probably hate us for leaving that off.
Yeah, they'll be like, "What's wrong with you?" We're gonna be like, "We were thinking 21st century and close." Whatever.
All right, so I'm going to read back our final picks, and then we'll end with some recommendation of the week. Yeah, I picked Back to the Future, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Palm Springs, Muppet Christmas Carol, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, 2046. Those are my picks. Hayden, you had Interstellar, Groundhog Day, Arrival, Edge of Tomorrow, Tenet, Deja Vu, and Army of Darkness.
Woo!
Love it. All right. Did you prepare a recommendation of the week?
I did have one, but it's not here right now. Let me
Find it.
I'm thinking. I'm digging in my brain for it. I was gonna say just watch Succession again, but I said that last time I was on, so I can't say that.
That's
again.
true.
I would say you can just clip to whatever.
Okay, I'll do mine
Okay, you do yours.
because I'm winging it too, because I didn't actually think of something before. But I talked about the Criterion Collection.
Yeah.
Like the Criterion Collection physical copies of these Wes Anderson movies that I've been watching. And they've just been really insightful and a lot of cool stuff going on in there, just with the extra features. So if there's a movie you love, my recommendation is go and see if there's a Criterion Collection edition of it and get it. Because there's going to be stuff you've never seen or heard before in that disc in the special features that make it worth owning. So, and they're always adding to the collection. So if your favorite movie isn't in the collection now, maybe it will be in the future. But that's my recommendation. They just put out some really cool stuff. And actually, like some of these posters behind me, like I've got a Grand Budapest one, Rushmore. These are both from Moonrise Kingdom. Those were in the Criterion, like in the sleeve. So that's my recommendation.
My recommendation, I guess I will say, just get outside.
Okay.
The sun's out. It's hot. I love watching movies. I love being in a room, but there's something about a little bit of vitamin C therapy. So I was outside all morning this morning filming a video, and it just brought joy to my life. So just get outside. There's my recommendation.
Get outside, get some sun, sweat a little bit.
Yeah, catch some Zeds, I think they call it in Europe. Catch some Zeds.
Sure.
I don't know what that means. But.
Yeah, great recommendation. If you're listening to this and you're inside, then go outside right now.
Go touch grass. Go out.
Right this second. All right, well, I think that's all we have for you this week. Hayden, go ahead and, I know you've been on before, but go ahead and give your socials where people can connect with you.
Yeah.
In case this is their first look at Haydn Fabre.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram or Twitter at Haydn Fabre. That's HAYDNFABRE. Let's communicate. Let's talk. You DM me what you're watching. I'll DM you what I'm watching, and let's just be friends.
Yeah. And is your letterboxed Haydn Fabre too?
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, cool.
Letterbox me. Is that a thing? Letterbox me?
So follow me on Letterboxd.
Fight somebody. Letterbox
Yeah.
me.
I mean, people might fight in the comments.
Yeah. Well, that's
On
natural.
Letterboxd.
We're talking about movies. That's what people do when they talk about movies. They fight and argue.
But yeah, that's where you can find Haydn Fabre on Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd. He already spelled it, so I hope you wrote it down.
Yeah.
But I'll put it in the
missing
show
some
notes.
letters and adding some letters into what it would sound like. So just give your best guess.
Yeah, it'll be in the show description. So, yeah, that's all we have for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. It was a blast talking about Fantastic Mr. Fox. It was a fantastic conversation, I think, if you will. And so, yeah, it was fun having you on, Haydn, and I look forward to next week's episode on Moonrise Kingdom. But until then, I've been Eli Price, and for Haydn Fabre, we hope you have a great week, and we will see you next time on The Establishing Shot. Thank you so much for joining us on The Establishing Shot today. We hope you enjoyed the episode and got a lot out of it. Make sure before you go to like and subscribe on all your podcast platforms, and especially on Spotify and Apple. If you could leave a rating and review, that would greatly help the visibility of the podcast, and I would greatly appreciate it. Again, if you go to establishingshotpod.com, you can find out all you need to know about the show, where to find us on the social media platforms, where to find us podcast-wise, YouTube, and you can even leave a voicemail there on the website on the right side of your screen. So click that if you want to give a comment or ask a question about the show. Just feel free to leave a voicemail. We'd be happy to feature that on the show. And also, if you just want to email rather than leave a voicemail, you can email us at establishingshotpod@gmail.com, and we would be happy to answer your question there or feature a question or comment on the show if it pertains to the episodes. So please do that, and we would love for you to join the Establishing Shot family. You can, again, find where to do that on the donate page at establishingshotpod.com. We hope you have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.
We were happy here. For a little while.
But look, I figure it this way. Better to be king for a night than schmuck for a lifetime.